Chapter 16. Chu Li finished refining the medicine and pushed the door open. The sun was shining brightly. It had been 2 hours. The door to the west room opened as well. Zhao Ying stepped out and rolled her eyes at Chu Li. "Chu Li, thank you." She could clearly feel the changes in her body. Her meridians had become stronger. Her inner energy was flowing more smoothly and faster. Her martial arts had improved a lot. She would definitely be able to pass the Rank 8 exam when she returned. Chu Li smiled. "Let's eat first before we continue our journey." "Okay." Zhao Ying nodded. The waiter brought breakfast. The two ate at the stone table in the courtyard and continued their journey. Once they were out of town, they sped up their horses. There were not many people on the main road. Their horses galloped so fast that it did not stop them from talking. Chu Li told her some interesting anecdotes and quickly dispelled Zhao Ying's resentment. They continued to chat and laugh. Chu Li had a stomach full of books, so it was easy for him to recite all the anecdotes of the martial arts world. Zhao Ying listened to him with great interest, completely forgetting herself. In the middle of the morning, Chu Li suddenly stopped his horse. Zhao Ying quickly reined in her horse and turned around. "Chu Li, what's wrong?" Chu Li pointed at a mountain range in the distance. "This is the Raging Tiger Mountain." "What's wrong with the Raging Tiger Mountain?" Zhao Ying looked at the mountain range. "There's a raging tiger troop in the Raging Tiger Mountain." Chu Li frowned. "It's a strong troop. They rob passers-by." Zhao Ying was shocked. "We'll meet one? We have to be careful." "What should we do? Do we take a detour?" "This is the only way." "Then we'll go through it." Zhao Ying pressed on her sword. "We'll just fight." Her martial arts had suddenly increased, and her heart was already restless. She wanted to experience how strong she was, so she was fearless. Chu Li shook his head. "The Raging Tiger Troop has an innate master." Zhao Ying's expression changed. She let go of her sword. They were no match for an innate master. An innate master could release their inner energy and transfer it through objects. No matter how strong she was, she had no chance of winning. Even Chu Li could not beat an innate master, no matter how good his swordsmanship was. "Be careful. Let's go." "Are we really going? Are we going back?" "Oh, all right then." Chu Li rode his horse slowly and stepped onto the Raging Tiger Mountain. The forest on both sides of the mountain was dense, and behind the forest was a towering mountain peak. The terrain was dangerous, as if one man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. It was the best place to build a stronghold. Chu Li said as he walked, "Junior Sister Zhao, when we fight later, don't show any mercy." Zhao Ying hesitated. Chu Li said, "If we can't kill him, we'll attract the attention of an innate master, and we'll be in big trouble." "All right." Zhao Ying nodded helplessly. After walking for a quarter of an hour, Chu Li frowned and turned to give Zhao Ying a look. Zhao Ying nodded and understood what he meant. There was an ambush ahead. Chu Li reined in his horse and gave a fist salute. "My friend, please show yourself." Zhao Ying drew her sword, ready to strike at any moment. A loud laughter suddenly rang out. The branches swayed, and 6 burly men came out of the forest, standing 10 meters away from them. Their bald heads shone brightly under the sunlight. "Heroes!" Chu Li gave a fist salute. "My wife and I have nothing on us. We don't have any money." The gazes of the 6 burly men all fell on Zhao Ying's body. Their gazes wandered back and forth between her delicate face and curvaceous body. Their gazes became more and more fervent, wishing that they could immediately strip off her clothes and do it on the spot. Chu Li frowned and crossed his horse to block their gazes. He hid Zhao Ying behind him. Zhao Ying frowned, and her face darkened. Their burning gazes seemed to penetrate through her clothes, and she felt uncomfortable. "Boy, be sensible and give us the beauty. We'll spare your life." The leader of the burly men looked at him and scoffed. You don't deserve to have a lady like her. Chu Li frowned. Everyone will rob you of your wealth, but not your beauty. This is the rule of the martial arts world. Rule? The burly man laughed. Bullsh asterisk T rules. In our raging tiger mountain, the raging tiger troop is the rule. Chu Li drew his sword. Then there's nothing more to say. I'll have a taste of your skills. Boy, you better think carefully. Once you draw your sword, we won't show any mercy. We'll kill you and have some fun with the lady before we kill her. The burly man looked at Chu Li like a cat toying with a mouse. If you don't draw your sword and let the lady be the wife of the troop's leader, you'll be spared. Humph, boy, if you dare to draw your sword, we won't kill you. We'll break your limbs and pull out your tongue. Then we'll have fun with the lady in front of you. Another burly man laughed. Chu Li's gaze turned cold. They had played this game of cat and mouse many times. They worked well together and harmed many people. Every one of them deserved to die 100 times. Huh. Back. Jiao Huang? Kai Fei hashtag AO Huang? Smelling hot. Boy. The leader of the burly men sneered. Later, you'll be watching us serve your lady. I'm impressed that you can still be so stubborn. Go. Zhao drew her sword and stood in front of Chu Li. She was a protector. How could she let Chu Li charge in front of her? Chu Li did not push her away. One of the burly men strode forward. The long knife in his hand flashed with a cold light. The smell of blood was faintly discernible. This knife had killed many people. Hee, little lady, I'll love you dearly. He laughed lewdly and slashed down with his knife. The knife was like a silver waterfall, cold and dense. Sister, don't panic, Chu Li said gently. He took a step forward, ready to help Zhao Ying at any time. Zhao Ying calmed down. Chu Li's voice had a strange power. She calmed down and calmed down. She raised the tip of her sword and waved it lightly. Facing the fierce knife, she was like a swallow facing the wind. She swept past it and looked for an opening to attack. Ding! The knife and the sword clashed. Zhao Ying's long sword spun. The burly man groaned. His shoulder was hit, and the long knife fell to the ground. She put away her sword and stood still. Her eyes were shining. This beautiful sword gave her confidence. The improved swallow sword technique was indeed powerful. This beautiful feeling of flying like a swallow was really wonderful. It gave her the courage to face any challenge. The little lady has some tricks up her sleeve. The burly man in front stepped forward to guard against Chu Li and Zhao Ying's pursuit. He waited for his companions to retreat before sneering. I underestimated you. Interesting. Zhao Ying's confidence was boosted. Her eyes sharpened, and she scoffed. A bunch of shameless people. Die. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. She talked big, but she was still soft-hearted. If it was him, that guy just now would have been dead. I'm here to ask for advice from the little lady. Another burly man stood up. He held a long knife and stared greedily at her curvaceous body. He laughed. Don't worry, little lady. I won't hurt you. Zhao Ying scoffed. Watch my sword. Her sword flew towards the burly man. The man raised his long knife and attacked continuously. He was taking a soft approach. It was completely different from his previous ferocious attacks. It was like a spider's web, coiling around and trying to entangle the swallow. Zhao Ying's sword was light and agile. It was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. In the blink of an eye, she had exchanged more than 20 moves with the burly man. Chu Li said gently, Sister, don't rush. Zhao Ying nodded slightly. Her impatient heart calmed down. She patiently dealt with the man, looking for his weakness. Her eyes suddenly lit up. She finally found the man's weakness. Her sword suddenly sped up. The burly man groaned. His long knife fell to the ground, and he quickly retreated. Chu Li suddenly stepped forward. With a flash of his sword, the burly man fell to the ground with his hand on his throat. Blood spurted out like a fountain. He groaned and stared at Chu Li with hatred. Chu Li gently shook his long sword to shake off the blood. He glanced at the opposite side. "Do you still want to go? You'll die." The burly man in front stared at Chu Li. He gritted his teeth and said slowly, "You'll be cut into pieces. The same goes for the little lady. When you're done playing, we'll cut you piece by piece." "If I were you, I'd cut my own throat as soon as possible." Chu Li looked up and laughed. A motley crew. How arrogant. Chapter 17. The men immediately surrounded him, all holding long knives. The cold gleam reflected off their bald heads and formed a great deterrent. Zhao was confident, but she was still uncertain in the face of a siege. She whispered, "Brother, let's run." Chu Li shook his head. "Kill them first." If these scums were left alive, many people would be harmed. "All right." Zhao nodded lightly. She also felt that these people deserved to die. If her martial arts were weak, she would have been humiliated by them. Just thinking about it made her skin crawl. She did not even dare to think about it. The blade flashed, and 4 knives were swung at him. Chu Li snorted. His sword flashed and instantly pierced through the wrists of 2 men. He then turned and stabbed at the last man. Zhao only needed to focus on one. "Ah, ah." They screamed almost at the same time. The wrists of the 3 men were pierced, and their long knives fell to the ground. Zhao and the last man were entangled in a fight. The sword and the knife were entangled. This man's knife technique was sharp and gentle. It was not inferior to Zhao Ying's swallow sword technique. Chu Li was not in a hurry to help and let Zhao gain some experience. He stabbed with his long sword, and the 3 men's throats were pierced. They spat out blood and twitched. They stared at Chu Li viciously. They did not show any fear, even in death. Chu Li gently shook his long sword and pulled it out. He stood at the side and watched. "Sister, a long night is fraught with trouble. Let's finish him." "Good." Zhao shouted, and her sword became more and more graceful. It was extraordinarily agile, and it was impossible to defend against it. "I'm going to drag one of you down with me." The burly man roared in anger. His body suddenly swelled up, and his face turned purple. Ignoring Zhao Ying's sword, he took a hit on his shoulder and slashed out with his saber. This was a move that would injure both sides. Zhao snorted and dodged. Chu Li knew something was wrong. He stabbed the man right in the heart. The man's eyes widened, and he looked down at the sword pointing at him. Blood gushed out of his mouth. He tilted his head and fell to the ground. Chu Li sighed in relief. Zhao turned and looked at him in confusion. Chu Li lifted the man's shirt, and a whistling arrow was in his hand. He was a little late, and the arrow was shot into the sky. Chu Li said, "Sister Zhao, next time you encounter this situation, don't retreat." Zhao nodded in embarrassment. He had almost made a big mistake just now. If the man had really shot the whistling arrow, he and Brother Chu would have been doomed. If a Xiantian master had come, they would have lost their lives. Chu Li nodded. "When you retreated just now, it was a human instinct, so experience is very important." "Yes." Zhao nodded and suddenly said, "Brother Chu, this is also your first time leaving the house, right?" "It's in the books." Chu Li pointed and smiled. "That's why you have to read more. Sometimes it will save your life." "Yes." Zhao nodded vigorously. Previously, he had thought that martial arts was everything. Only with strong martial arts could he deal with danger. Studying was useless as it would only delay his cultivation. If his martial arts were not strong, it would be useless no matter how much he knew. Now, it seemed that he had thought too lightly. He still had to read more books in addition to cultivation. Chu Li bent down to pick up a knife and cut off the heads of the 7 men. He did it cleanly and calmly, as if he was cutting pork. Zhao Ying's face turned pale. She could kill, but she did not dare to look at the heads. She felt that Chu Li was too cruel. They were already dead, no matter how big the hatred was. It should be gone. Chu Li threw the knife away and dusted his hands. There was not a single drop of blood. He looked at Zhao Ying and shook his head. "You think I'm cruel? They're already dead. Why bother?" "From what I know, some people's hearts are on the right side. Some people have cultivated some strange heart techniques and can fake their death." "Really?" "Sister Zhao, you've become stupid after following that idiot Zhuo Feiyang. All you know is to cultivate and cultivate. It's as if mastering martial arts will make you invincible and solve everything. Isn't that so? This guy's heart is on the right side." Chu Li pointed at one of the corpses. He cut open the skin with the tip of his sword, revealing a heart. Zhao Ying quickly waved her hand. She did not want to look, but she glanced at the heart. It was really on the right side. Chu Li said, "Also, Zhuo Feiyang thinks that he's a genius and will become invincible, right?" Zhao Ying nodded. "Brother Zhuo is indeed a genius." Chu Li laughed. "Naive. No matter how much you cultivate in the public house, you won't become invincible." "Why?" Zhao Ying asked in surprise. "Is there a problem with the heart technique?" Chu Li said, "To become invincible, having a good heart technique is not enough. You also need talent. Brother Zhuo is very talented. Other than talent, you also need something else. To become a grandmaster, you have to go to a sect. This is considered a top secret. Sister Zhao, don't tell anyone." "Why is that?" Zhao Ying's attention was drawn to him. The two left the bloody scene and continued on their way. As they rode, Chu Li said, "Artistic conception, from innate to innate, it doesn't rely on hard work. It's the state of mind and artistic conception. The major sects that have been passed down for more than 100 years usually have the secret realm of artistic conception. The public house has martial arts scriptures, but not the secret realm of artistic conception, so they can't become a grandmaster." "Artistic conception," Zhao Ying muttered. Chu Li said, "This is a top secret that only rank 6 can come into contact with. You'll know about it in the future. I'm telling you in advance, so you don't go astray. You have to focus on the accumulation of knowledge. If you blindly cultivate, your achievements will be limited. Brother Chu, according to what you're saying, one can only reach innate mastery in the public house." "Yes, that's not right. There must be grandmasters in the public house, right?" "Of course. Then how do they cultivate?" "This is another top secret. Brother Chu—" "All right, there's no harm in telling you, but you have to promise me that you won't pass it on to outsiders." "I swear, I won't pass it on to anyone else." "Yes," Chu Li nodded. "Actually, there's a system in the public house. Once you reach innate mastery, you'll enter a sect to cultivate." "Sect? This is also a top secret," Chu Li muttered. "Although the High Duke's public house suppresses sects, they don't blindly suppress them. They have also roped in some of the sections. Innate masters will enter these sects to cultivate." Zhao Ying's eyes widened. This was a top secret. Based on what she knew, the public house helped the imperial court to suppress the martial arts world. Once the martial arts masters went crazy, the imperial court would not be able to stop them. They needed the help of the public house. To outsiders, the public house and the martial arts sects were irreconcilable enemies. Who would have thought that there was a secret collusion? Chu Li looked at her. "If this is leaked, do you know how serious the consequences will be? I'll die before I say anything." Zhaoying nodded. If the martial arts sects knew about this, they would definitely think of ways to kill these people. The public house's people would wither, and their strength would be greatly reduced. They would not be able to suppress the martial arts world, and there would be chaos. Chu Li nodded in satisfaction. That's why the choice of martial arts is very important. It's related to the sects you'll join in the future. The delusion split has no future because the sects are already dead. If the Swallow Blade can enter the Terpsichore faction, you're lucky. The delusion split. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Chu Li said, "You're not going to tell Zhuo Feiyang, are you?" But Zhaoying hesitated. Chu Li scoffed. "What do you want to say? Are you going to watch Zhuo Feiyang walk down the wrong path?" "Humph, don't worry. I'll use the delusion split to teach him a lesson. He won't practice it anymore. Zhuo Feiyang might become a demon and practice the delusion split with all his might." Sigh. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Zhaoying quickly said, "Brother Chu, I'm not biased towards Zhuo Feiyang. It's just that, whatever." Chu Li shook his head. "He's just an idiot. His achievements will be limited." Zhaoying rolled her eyes at him. Chu Li smiled. "Do you think that I'm purposely belittling him? You two are really... He has a good body and a fast cultivation speed. That's not a problem. The problem is that he's ignorant and incompetent. Once he passes the innate mastery level, he'll have a hard time." Chapter 18. The two of them galloped for half an hour and traveled a few dozen miles. Just as they were about to leave the raging Tiger Mountain, Chu Li reined in his horse again. Zhaoying stopped her horse and looked forward. She had been on high alert and felt that there would be more than one group of robbers. Chu Li frowned and looked into the distance. "We have to be careful with these people." "Brother, let me do it." Zhaoying felt that she was not a good protector. Chu Li shook his head. 3 bald men slowly walked out from the opposite side. They were dressed the same as the 6 men from before. They were all middle-aged. "Who are you?" Chu Li scoffed. "You want to rob us in such a bright day. It's you, isn't it?" A man as burly as a bear slowly walked out and stood 10 meters away from Chu Li. His gaze was as sharp as a knife. "You killed my men, right? I don't understand." Chu Li shook his head. "Who are your men? Good boy, you're playing dumb." The bald man sneered and glanced at Zhaoying. Zhaoying felt as if a knife was stabbing into her heart. She quickly took a deep breath to suppress her fear and coldly stared back. Chu Li frowned and looked at him. "Why are you playing dumb? Even I'm confused. Just tell me, what do you want? It's not you." The bald man looked them up and down. Logically, with the lady's beauty, his men would not have let her go. However, the 2 men did not seem to be skilled in martial arts. If they could kill his men, they were definitely not ordinary masters. Could it be that they were wrong, and it was not them? "You're so stupid." Chu Li snorted and drew his sword. "We have martial arts too. If we really fight, it's hard to say who will win. I'll say this first, we have no money." "Humph, if that's the case, then leave the lady and get lost." The bald man waved his hand. "Get lost before I get angry." Chu Li's face darkened. He drew his sword and stabbed. "Get lost." His sword was soft and weak. It was obvious that he had not mastered it yet. It was light and slow, not threatening at all. In this short period of time, the bald man's soul had been hooked by Zhaoying. He felt that every frown and smile of hers was beautiful. She was simply a stunner created by the heavens. He absolutely could not let her go. How beautiful would she be if he could get her on the bed? 10th Lord, be careful. The loud roar behind him brought him back to his senses. He quickly channeled his energy, but felt a sharp pain in his chest. He widened his eyes and stared at Chu Li before lowering his head to look at his chest. Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated, blood spurting out from his mouth. The two burly men behind him roared angrily and rushed over. Two blades fell down like a waterfall, fierce and overbearing. Instead of retreating, Chu Li advanced. In a flash, he appeared behind one of the men. His sword flashed, and the tip of his sword pierced through the man's chest. Chu Li pulled his sword out, and before the other man could react, the tip of his sword had already pierced through his heart. In the blink of an eye, Chu Li thrust his sword 3 times and pierced through the hearts of the 3 men. He stopped and leaned on his sword, panting. His face was pale. Zhao Ying was dumbfounded. Chu Li's body was like a ghost, and his sword was like a flash of light. She felt a chill run down her spine. She was powerless against such swordsmanship. Zhao Ying. Chu Li coughed softly. Zhao Ying came back to her senses and hurriedly went to help him up. "Senior Brother Chu, are you all right?" She saw that Chu Li's face was pale. It was obvious that the 3 swords had a price. Once he attacked, he went all out and even stimulated his potential. She secretly sighed to herself. Chu Li waved his hand and did not let her help him up. "I'll be fine after some rest. It's not safe to stay here for long. Let's go." He underestimated the overbearing power of the infinite azure sea. After 3 times, the burden on his meridians was not just 3 times, but 9 times. If it was not for his strong meridians, he would have died this time. "Okay." Zhao Ying quickly nodded. "Give them 2 more slashes." Chu Li said. Zhao Ying gritted her teeth and nodded. She picked up a blade from the ground and ruthlessly stabbed them on both sides of their hearts. She could not bear to decapitate them. Chu Li did not force her. Before Zhao Ying could throw the blade away, he called out, "This blade is not bad, right?" Zhao Ying was stunned. She was too nervous just now and did not realize that the blade was really sharp. Chu Li said, "Keep it, it's a good blade. Let's take a look at the other 2 as well." Zhao Ying walked over and picked up the other 2 blades. She chopped at the trees beside them. They were all unusually sharp. Although they could not cut through iron like mud, they were much sharper than normal blades. Once they were in a fight, they would be at an advantage. Chu Li nodded. "Stay, let's go." "Let's go." Zhao Ying quickly nodded. They cleaned the 3 blades, unsheathed them, tied them to the saddles, and galloped away. Chu Li sat on the horse motionlessly. Zhao Ying glanced at him from time to time to see his expression. "Brother Chu, let's find a place to rest." "No need, let's go. We need to leave the raging Tiger Mountain as soon as possible." "You're hurt." "I'm fine." "Why are you in such a hurry? What if you encounter another robber?" "I'll leave it to you, sister." "Me." Zhao Ying was stunned and said in shame, "I'm really useless." Chu Li laughed. "Your rank is still too low, but I'm a protector. Brother Chu, you're a scribe." Zhao Ying gritted her teeth and scoffed. "Next time, leave it to me." Chu Li smiled and nodded. "I'll leave it to you, Sister Zhao. I hope we won't encounter another robber." Zhao Ying sighed. 15 minutes after she said that, they encountered another wave of robbers. 10 burly men came out of the forest, laughing. They lined up and blocked the road. They wore short brown clothes and had messy hair. They held long knives in their hands, and their faces were fierce. They stared at Zhao Ying greedily, as if looking at her was worth it. Zhao Ying turned to look at Chu Li. His face was still pale. Chu Li smiled at her. Zhao Ying took a deep breath. She pressed on the saddle and shouted, "Hey, what are you doing?" A burly man with a bare upper body came out and stared at Zhao Ying with bright eyes. "Hee, young lady, greetings. Let's invite you up the mountain as a guest." "I'm not interested. Get out of the way. We need to hurry." Zhao Ying shouted, "Hee, little lady, you can eat and drink good food on the mountain. It's so enjoyable. I guarantee that you won't want to go down the mountain again. The naked man chuckled and said, "It's better than living as an immortal." Zhao scoffed with a cold face. "If you don't move, don't blame me for being rude." "Hee hee, young lady, we're both sincere." The burly man smiled. "Who's that pretty boy?" "None of your business," Zhao said snappily. The burly man nodded. "Looks like he's the young lady's sweetheart. He looks so sick. How about this? We have a doctor in the mountain. We can bring him up the mountain to have a look and cure him." "No need," Zhao scoffed. Chuli shook his head and sighed. "All right, let's do it. Stop talking to them." "All right," Zhao shouted. "I'll say it again. Move, or I'll do it. Come, come. I want to see the young lady's martial arts." The burly man laughed. The other burly men laughed. "Yes, yes, let's see the young lady's martial arts." Although Zhao Ying was innocent, she was not ignorant. She could tell that they were referring to something else. In her anger, her face was covered with frost. She pulled out her sword and stabbed. The burly man dodged it easily. His burly body was unusually agile. Zhao Ying used the swallow sword technique. Her movements were light and graceful. The burly man was empty-handed and did not use his knife. He only relied on his body technique to deal with her. He teased her and angered her. Chuli shook his head and did not say much. These were all experiences that she needed to accumulate. She would not improve if she did not suffer. After more than 50 moves, Zhao Ying was a little impatient. She did not expect this wretched-looking burly man to be so difficult. She could not take him down. There were still 9 more. Just thinking about it made her feel hopeless. Chu Li's voice was heard. "Use your wits and not your strength." Zhao Ying was stunned. She could not act recklessly. There was still Chu Li. He was injured and could not fight. If she failed, both of them would die here. Thinking of this, she secretly said, "Don't rush, don't rush. I'll think of a way slowly." Her sword suddenly stabilized and became light and graceful again. However, the power was stronger. The burly man secretly frowned. He did not expect this delicate lady to have such a powerful sword technique. It would not be easy to take her down. He would lose face in front of his brothers. "Big brother, do you need us to help?" The crowd laughed after asking. "Big brother, you can't handle it alone. Let us help you. We must take this lady down." The crowd laughed. They were overjoyed and screamed. Chuli shook his head. These words were just to confuse people. However, these people were so unscrupulous. It seemed that they had done a lot of bad things because of the raging tiger troop. The raging tiger troop. He took a deep breath and frowned. He wondered if he could uproot the raging tiger troop. They were a disaster. He could not let them live. Unfortunately, his strength was weak. It would be difficult to fight against the raging tiger troop. "All of you, shut up. Stop. Gather. Bien. School Bay, G Magpie School. I think it's going to be difficult. Big brother, don't force yourself. It's okay to leave some soup for your brothers." "That's right. Big brother, you can't keep all the benefits to yourself." "Such a beauty. She's the best. I haven't seen one in a long time. My heart feels like it's being scratched by a cat. Big brother, hurry up. All of you, shut up." The man roared. His palm technique suddenly changed from gentle to fierce. It was like an iron palm that met the long sword. Bang! The palm and the sword collided. Zhao Ying's sword was pushed away. She was shocked. The huge force that came from the sword almost made it fly away. This guy had guts. He dared to fight the sword with his bare hands. Bang, 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 bang. The palm and the sword continued to collide. Zhao Ying's sword was pushed away. The force on the sword was getting stronger and stronger. Chuli looked at Zhao Ying. She was like a swallow in the wind. She could be swallowed at any time, but she was still trying her best to fly. He nodded to himself. Although she was kind and weak, she would fight hard at crucial times. Ah! The man suddenly screamed. Zhao Ying pulled out her sword and retreated. The man held his shoulder and stared at Zhao Ying in shock. Zhao Ying's face was covered with frost. She stared at the people in front of her and said, "If you don't move away, he will be the one to die." Ha! Everyone laughed. "Big brother, you're at a disadvantage, aren't you? I told you that you can't keep everything to yourself. You still need help from your brothers." Everyone laughed at them. They did not take Zhao Ying and Chu Li seriously at all. They had seen through Zhao Ying's martial arts. She could not defeat her alone. However, if everyone attacked together, she would definitely fall. As for the sickly pretty boy, he might not even be able to move. He was not a threat at all. They were imagining the wonderful feeling of holding such a beautiful lady in their arms. Everyone smiled. Chapter 19. Zhao Ying clenched her teeth and tried her best to hold on, but she was getting more and more desperate. Blades were coming at her from all directions, and they could kill her at any time. Senior brother Chu was here as well. Were they going to die here? She tried hard to clear her mind of distracting thoughts and focused on her swordsmanship. She looked for an opening to attack and held on for as long as she could. "Senior martial brother, you go first," she shouted. Chu Li sighed and unsheathed his sword. He pressed on the saddle and leaped into the air. He dove down like an eagle, his sword flashing like lightning. Ah! Screams of agony could be heard one after another. Zhao Ying felt the pressure on her suddenly lessen. She quickly turned her head to look. Chu Li's body was like a ghost, and his sword was like lightning. Every time he flashed, someone would fall. In the blink of an eye, before she could even use her third move, everyone had already fallen to the ground. Other than the two of them, no one else was left standing. "Senior brother." Zhao Ying was surprised. Chu Li leaned on his sword, his face turning pale. He smiled bitterly and said, "Let's go, we shouldn't stay here for long." "All right." Zhao Ying nodded. This time, she did not need Chu Li's reminder. She raised her sword and stabbed the people on the ground one by one. Then, she helped Chu Li onto the horse. The two of them galloped away and finally left the territory of the Raging Tiger Ridge. Once they left the Raging Tiger Ridge, Zhao Ying let out a long sigh of relief and turned to look at Chu Li. Chu Li's complexion did not improve. He was still as pale as a sheet. "Brother Chu, let's find a place to rest. Now that we've left the ferocious Tiger Mountain, there won't be any more robberies. Let's go further. Be careful, they might catch up." "Can you hold on?" "No problem." Chu Li smiled. "I'm fine. I'm just tired from channeling too much." Zhao Ying shook her head. Even if he was tired, he couldn't be this tired. He must have been injured. He must have activated a secret technique that stimulated his potential, and the aftereffects were acting up. Especially just now, he must have used a secret technique for the second time, which worsened his injuries. Thinking of this, she blamed herself. She was too useless. Her martial arts were too weak. Not only could she not fulfill her duty as a guard, but she was also a burden. This was simply a disgrace. Chu Li smiled. "Junior sister Zhao, don't blame yourself. The strength of your martial arts is not up to you. Just focus on cultivating." "Yes." Zhao Ying lowered her head. Chu Li said, "You haven't fully understood the profoundness of the swallow sword technique. It's best if you observe swallows or see how other birds fly. I'm sure you'll be inspired." "That's right." Zhao Ying raised her head and revealed an excited expression. "I should observe the flying swallow." Chu Li smiled. "There will be a chance." As the two of them talked, they ran for another dozen li and finally rested in a forest. It was already evening. Zhao Ying jumped onto a tree and looked around. She shook her head. Senior brother Chu, we may have to sleep in the wild tonight. I'm not that delicate. Chu Li smiled. He sat cross-legged on a thick layer of withered leaves. An endless stream of inner energy surged into his body from the ground, nourishing his body. His meridians were like dry land that had received rain, recovering rapidly. After his meridians recovered a little, he circulated the minute pulse cleansing technique to speed up his recovery. Zhao Ying looked at Chu Li's expression. Chu Li smiled. I'm really fine. I'll be fine after some rest. It's all my fault. Zhao Ying whispered. Chu Li said, Junior sister Zhao, you're asking for trouble if you think that way. I can only blame myself for not being skilled enough. Zhao Ying shook her head. Chu Li smiled. Junior sister Zhao, do you know how to cook? Of course. Then let's make a delicious meal. Okay. Zhao Ying nodded vigorously. Only when you're full will you have the strength to heal. She turned around to gather some wild vegetables and mushrooms. She was very proficient with mushrooms. Most of the mushrooms in the wild were inedible. One careless mistake, and one would be poisoned. However, most of the mushrooms in the wild were delicious. In the end, she used jerky and rice, along with the wild vegetables and mushrooms to cook a pot of porridge. After cooking for 4 hours, the aroma filled his nostrils. After Chu Li drank it, his whole body was steaming hot. It was indescribably comfortable. Her porridge was cooked to perfection. It was especially delicious when he was so tired. The moonlight was like water. Chu Li sat quietly and cultivated. Zhao Ying sat 3 steps away from him. She listened to his long and deep breathing. She suddenly felt at ease. She stole a glance at Chu Li. Chu Li's face was solemn. It was as if he was one with heaven and earth. He exuded an inexplicable majesty and momentum. She quickly closed her eyes, afraid of being discovered by Chu Li. Thinking of the humiliation during the day, she suddenly became energetic. She had to cultivate desperately. Under the circulation of her inner energy, her meridians stabilized. She completed one cycle after another. Usually, she could only complete 10 cycles. Now, she had completed 20 cycles. In this way, it was no different than doubling her cultivation speed. How amazing was this? She also felt that her meridians were stabilized during the day. However, she did not expect it to be this amazing. The effects of the medicine had only been completely exhausted now. She glanced at Chu Li again and lay down to sleep. When she woke up in the morning, she turned around and did not see Chu Li. She quickly jumped onto a tree. The 2 horses were still there, but Chu Li was nowhere to be seen. She was about to call for him when footsteps were heard. Chu Li walked out from the depths of the forest with 2 deer. Brother Chu. She quickly called out. Chu Li lifted the 2 deer and smiled. I'm in luck. You should have told me. Zhao Ying landed in front of him. She rolled her eyes at him and took the deer. Are your injuries better? Chu Li smiled. I'm fine now. Zhao Ying smiled. That's good. What do you want to eat? Sister specialty. Chu Li smiled. Zhao Ying had small and exquisite pots and bowls on the saddle. This was a necessary equipment for a protector. It was very risky for a protector to eat other people's food when they were outside. Even if they had silverware to test for poison, it was not safe. It was best to eat their own food. Watch me. Zhao Ying smiled. The 2 of them ate a meal of boiled deer meat. The aroma of the meat and the mushroom mixed together to form a rich, unique aroma that made people salivate. The 2 of them continued their journey after the meal. The rest of the journey was smooth. There were no more robberies. In the evening, they arrived in front of a valley. This valley was very hidden. It looked like a depression next to a small hill. After entering, They realized that it was a different world. The valley was deep and dense with lush vegetation. The land was fertile. Chu Li was amazed. As expected of the house of high dukes, they were so powerful that they could find such a wonderful and inconspicuous place here. This is the place. Zhao Ying followed them into the valley. She looked at the dense trees and said helplessly, "No one has been here before, right?" Chu Li nodded. "That's why it's so hidden. From today onwards, we can't leave the valley. How long do we have to stay?" "A month." "What can we do in a month?" "Planting deity's beard." "You don't know about this thing, right?" Zhao Ying shook her head. She had never heard of it. Chu Li smiled and explained about the deity's beard. He then began to work. The 3 long knives were put to use. They cut down the trees like tofu. Chu Li and Zhao Ying cut down a few trees and built 2 wooden houses. It was simple but sturdy. Deep in the valley, there was a pool under the stone wall. It was as clear as a mirror. They fetched water from there. Zhao Ying was usually responsible for cooking and training. Chu Li cleared 5 acres of land to plant deity's beard and nightmare flower. He found 4 stalks of tendon refinement grass in the valley. He combined them with the earth dragon grass and made 16 tendon refinement pills. The 2 of them divided them in half. The tendon refinement pill was precious to others, but it was easy for him to get. Zhao Ying did not argue and happily accepted it. After taking it, she realized that her meridians had doubled. She could train from night to morning. Her inner energy had improved by leaps and bounds. Chu Li's speed was even faster. In 10 days, she had already broken through 30 acupuncture points, 6 more acupuncture points, and she would be able to complete the acquired stage. For a protector, if her martial arts did not hinder her, she would be able to break through rank 7 and become a rank 7 protector. Unfortunately, there was a huge gap between the acquired stage and the innate stage. It was extremely difficult to break through the innate stage. Out of 10 people who practiced martial arts, 9 were blocked. It was like a carp leaping through the dragon's gate. The key to breaking through the innate stage was still the cultivation level. If the foundation was solid and the talent was good, it would be easy to break through. If the foundation was not solid and the talent was poor, it would be forever stuck. Early in the morning, Zhao Ying woke up and went out to wash up. She then began to practice the swallow blade. She recalled Chu Li's pointers from the day before and studied it repeatedly. Little by little, she corrected it. She only changed 2 minor parts, but the power of the swallow blade had increased a lot. Chu Li's eyes were like lightning. He could always find the weakness of the blade technique. In just 10 days, Zhao Ying felt that her blade technique had changed drastically. Her power was not the same as before. After she finished her practice, she came to Chu Li's hut. Chu Li was practicing the delusion split. His movements were slow and leisurely, as if he was blindly gesticulating. She shook her head. Zhuo Feiyang did not practice this sword technique this way. He practiced it as fast as he could. He said that in order to break the opponent's sword, the sword must be faster. Otherwise, if the weakness was found, the sword would not be fast enough. The opportunity would be fleeting, and it would be useless. Now, she trusted Chu Li even more. Zhuo Feiyang was like a child, and his knowledge of martial arts was far from hers. There must be a reason why Chu Li was practicing so slowly. It was not a waste of time. "Brother!" "Oh, take the flower on the table and eat it." "What flower?" "I planted it for fun. It tastes good." "You're not joking with me, are you?" Zhao Ying stared at him. She realized that Chu Li loved to tease others. He loved to tease her. Sometimes she did not know whether to laugh or cry. She wanted to lose her temper, but she could not. Chu Li laughed as he practiced. It's good stuff. Don't regret it if you don't eat it. If there's anything wrong with it, I'll make you pay. Zhaoing scoffed. She walked to the square wooden table and opened the wooden box on the table. Inside was a crystal clear flower. It was like an ice sculpture. It was so beautiful that she could not bear to eat it. How do I eat it? Just pluck the petals and eat it. It tastes good. Zhao Ying looked at him worriedly. She steeled her heart and plucked one of the petals and placed it in her mouth. The sweet and refreshing taste flowed down her throat and into her heart. It was an indescribable comfort. She plucked another petal. When she came to her senses, the flower was already gone. She looked at Chu Li embarrassedly. Chu Li smiled. This is the nightmare flower. It's good for women. What's its use? Zhao Ying asked curiously. She did not feel uncomfortable. Instead, she felt warm and comfortable. Chapter 20. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. Eternal youth? Bullsh *T. Chu Li smiled. It's the seed that the third lady got. It can't be wrong. How do you feel? Such a precious thing. Zhao Ying hesitated and felt uneasy. She glared at Chu Li. You're too despicable. Chu Li's words reminded her of something. No matter how uneducated she was, she had heard of the legend of the nightmare flower. When the female protectors gathered together to chat, they would talk about the nightmare flower. They all dreamt of meeting such a rare flower. It would be wonderful. They all knew that it was a dream that could never come true. The nightmare flower was almost extinct. Even if there was one, it would not be theirs. She did not expect to eat the nightmare flower today. She was just a small protector. How could she have the right to eat it? Chu Li sheathed his sword and walked in front of her. Why? Do you think you're not worthy? Of course. Zhao Ying nodded. She knew her place. Her looks were passable, but there were many beauties in the world. There were many in the public house. Moreover, her beauty was not the best and could not compare to the women in the public house. To a protector, talent was the most important. Martial arts was the fundamental value. If her martial arts was weak, she would be the lowest ranking protector. It would not change because of her beauty. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. You're worthy. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes. Why do you have the nightmare flower? I planted it for the lady. That's reasonable, right? It's very troublesome to abuse your position. The third lady is fair and will not forgive you. The public house had strict rules. Once violated, the punishment would be severe. She did not want Chu Li to be punished because of this. Don't worry, the lady gave me one. Really? Zhao Ying sighed in relief. Don't think too much. The nightmare flower can also increase your martial arts. Hurry up and cultivate. All right. Zhao Ying bit her lip and turned to leave. She felt pressured. Chu Li had given her too much, but she could not repay him. She understood Chu Li's feelings, but feelings were not something else. She could not force herself. She liked Chu Li, but it was not to the point where she would do anything for him. She just liked to stay by his side. She did not have the strong impulse of a moth flying into a flame. Chu Li looked at her graceful silhouette and shook his head. He had been too hasty. He had to let it go and slow down. If he pushed her too hard, it would be bad. Time flew by like a white steed passing through a crevice, and a month quickly passed by. Chu Li's cultivation was progressing rapidly. 36 acupuncture points had been completely opened, and he had perfected his acquired mastery. When the conditions were right, he had reached the innate mastery's boundary. Now, his inner energy could be transferred through objects. He quickly figured out the reason. It was because of the life and death scripture. Originally, he could communicate with flowers and plants with spiritual qi, which was similar to the release of inner energy. It was already an innate ability, but it could only be used with flowers and plants. After breaking through the 36 acupoints, it spread to the entire world. In the Khanate realm, the life and death scripture was even more powerful. Not only did it expand to 200 meters, but he also didn't need to step on the ground to connect with plants. More importantly, he could now transfer the spiritual energy of plants to others. This meant that within a range of 200 meters, he could attack anyone with his inner force. It was impossible to defend against it. If he could level up the Life and Death Sutra once more, he would be able to control it from a further distance to 1,000 meters. If that were the case, he would truly be a heaven-defying existence. If he were to suddenly use it while others were cultivating, it would be enough to cause them to go berserk. As he thought of this, his heart burned with passion. What a great life and death scripture! The innate mastery's boundary allowed his spiritual energy to skyrocket. His omniscient mirror covered a radius of 3 miles. Within 3 miles, he could see through everything. Zhao Ying had also improved by leaps and bounds in this month. She had broken through 30 acupuncture points and was steadily at rank 8. She was even confident that she could reach rank 7. She felt that in another half a month, she would have perfected her acquired mastery. This was partly due to the tendon-cleansing grass and the nightmare flowers effect. It increased her inner force and strengthened her meridians. She felt that she was now twice as talented as Zhuo Feiyang. She would definitely become an innate master. One morning, Chu Li took a knife and harvested all the deity's beard. The deity's beard looked like grass, but it was thinner and longer. It felt more pliable to the touch. If one looked closely, one could see that it was different. However, who would pay attention to grass? Sister, our mission is over. Chu Li and Zhao Ying put the grass into a sack and smiled. We can go back now. Zhao Ying wiped the sweat off her forehead. She nodded lightly and looked around. The 2 wooden houses were more than 10 meters apart. She had only lived here for a month, but she felt like home. It was quiet and comfortable here. All right, go wash up. We'll leave today. Chu Li smiled. Zhao Ying asked, how do we transport it back? She looked at the 20 sacks. They would have to hire 2 carriages. She did not expect the deity's beard to be so big. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Just leave it here. We don't have to worry about it. Leave it here? Zhao Ying was surprised. Chu Li smiled. Someone will come to collect it. We don't have to worry about the rest. We'll leave after breakfast. All right. Zhao Ying nodded and tilted her head. Brother, are you sure about this? Chu Li laughed. I trust Lady Xiao Ying. There won't be any mistakes. It's been a month of hard work. What if something goes wrong? Do you want to wait here and see someone before leaving? Zhao Ying asked. She had seen how hard Chu Li worked. He took care of the deity's beard every day, weeding, fertilizing, and watering. He never left. He even stayed in the field at night. She did not know that Chu Li was cultivating with the help of the deity's beard. She thought that he was worried about wild beasts. Chu Li smiled. Zhao Ying saw that he had made up his mind. She was upset and started cooking. The 2 of them ate and left the ravine on horseback. Zhao Ying looked back from time to time to see who had entered the ravine. Chu Li whipped his horse and galloped. Soon, they could no longer see the ravine. Zhao Ying looked at him unwillingly and sighed. She could only follow him. Not long after they left, a group of 100 cavalrymen galloped over. They were as imposing as tigers. They maintained their formation even as they galloped. It was obvious that they were well-trained cavalrymen. There were 100 of them and 200 horses. Each person rode on 2 horses. They were travel-worn and exuded a murderous aura. They did not say a word and continued their journey in silence. When they arrived at the ravine, More than 10 cavalrymen entered the ravine. The rest formed a defensive formation. Their gazes were sharp and cold, as if they were indifferent to all life. Soon, a cavalryman left the ravine and brought a few more cavalrymen in. Each of them carried 2 sacks and came out. Chapter 21. As they galloped, Zhao kept looking back. She could not help but want to go back and see if the 20 sacks were still there and if someone else had taken them. However, Chu Li's face was dark, and he did not say a word. She knew that it was useless to say anything more, and it would not change his mind. She shook her head, secretly. Chu Li was really open-minded. It was good to hide and watch from the side, so that he could be at ease. If he just left like that, it would be very unreliable. She always felt that something was wrong. At noon, the sun was scorching. Chu Li entered the forest to give the horse some water and rest. The weather was not suitable for traveling. Sitting under the shade of a pine tree, Chu Li shook his head. "Sister, you are not suitable to be a protector." "Why?" Zhao sat opposite him and waved a branch. "My martial arts is too weak." Chu Li shook his head. "You are too curious. As a protector, you have to be deaf and mute. If you can't do it, it will be very dangerous." Zhao frowned. "I have to know the whole story so that I can take precautions. A protector has to be vigilant at all times, regardless of whether there is danger or not." Chu Li shook his head. "As for you, your curiosity will affect your judgment and distract you. I just want to see who will take the deity's beard." "What's the difference between knowing and not knowing?" Chu Li laughed. "The deity's beard is for the horses. Think about it. Who will take it? It will be the people from the public house." Chu Li laughed. Zhao rolled her eyes at him. "Is it not? Will the third lady do such a flashy thing? Then who will it be? Where will the deity's beard be most useful?" Zhao tilted her head and thought for a while. If the young masters were to race horses with others, of course, the stronger the better. Chu Li looked at her helplessly and sighed. "The army, the cavalry. Ah!" Zhao let out a soft cry. She did not think of this. Chu Li said, "Only in the army, with the cavalry, the deity's beard will be most useful." "Brother, you mean that the deity's beard will be sent to the army?" Zhao Yingxiu's expression immediately changed. She looked around and whispered, "Will we be silenced?" "Hey, if it involves the army, it's a confidential matter. The High Duke's public house can't be in contact with the army. How can we not be in danger if we know?" Zhao Ying's face was taut as she lowered her voice and said nervously, "The High Duke's public house was not allowed to have any dealings with the military. This was a clear order from the imperial court, just like how a prince was not allowed to befriend a minister." "It's not that serious." Chu Li smiled. "It's fine as long as you don't tell anyone." Zhao heaved a sigh of relief and blushed. Only then did she understand why Chu Li insisted on leaving. She was foolish enough to sneak a peek. If she were to be exposed, she would be in real danger. She would be forced to silence him. Thinking of this, she stood up and drew her sword to practice the flying swallow sword technique. Chu Li sat under the shade of the tree and lazily gave a few pointers. 2 hours later, the sun was not as scorching as before. The two of them got on their horses again and hurried on their journey. In the evening, as the sun set in the west, the tired birds returned to the forest. Chu Li looked at the setting sun and suddenly reined in his horse. Zhao also stopped and looked around cautiously. She held onto her sword and looked at Chu Li. "Brother, there's an ambush." Chu Li frowned and sighed. "Another robbery?" Zhao said hatefully. "This raging tiger troop." They stepped into the boundary of the raging tiger mountain again. She was always worried that there would be a robbery, but she did not think that they would not be able to escape. Chu Li thought for a while and turned his horse around. Zhao Ying quickly followed. "Brother, we can't go ahead." Chu Li shook his head. "It's just a bunch of robbers. Let's just kill them." Zhao Ying was eager to try. She was no longer an ignorant person. Her swordsmanship was strong, and her inner energy was profound. She was close to perfecting her acquired mastery. As long as she did not encounter an innate master from the raging tiger troop, she would not have a problem. Innate masters usually would not come down from the mountain to rob. Chu Li shook his head. His omniscient mirror had a strong sixth sense to seek luck and avoid danger. It had already given him a warning that there was danger ahead. "But we can't just go back, right?" Zhao Ying said unwillingly. Chu Li said, "Let's wait." "Wait until when?" "They have to return to the mountain eventually." "What if they take turns to stand guard?" "Then let's wait for the masters to return." Chu Li frowned. There should be innate masters. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. She opened her mouth but closed it again. She nodded. "We have to guard against them. But innate masters are shameless enough to rob us." Chu Li rode his horse into the forest. He tied the horses and sat on some dried leaves. "Let's go in the middle of the night." Zhao Ying nodded. The two of them sat cross-legged and adjusted their breathing. It was midnight. The moon was in the middle of the sky. Chu Li opened his eyes. "Let's go. Leave the horses." "Not riding. It's too noisy. Let's use light body technique to hurry." Zhao Ying looked at the two horses reluctantly. She had feelings for them. She was reluctant to give them up. "The old horses know the way. They will find their way back." "Really?" "The horses in the public house are specially trained. They can go back on their own." There were excellent trainers in the public house. The horses were trained to be very smart. Only the owner could get close to them. They also knew the way and could run back on their own. No one could catch them. "All right then." Zhao Ying touched the two horses reluctantly. She let go of the rope and took some food from the saddle. However, Chu Li stopped her. The two of them had to travel light. An extra bag of dried meat would be a burden at a critical moment. The two of them used light body technique and galloped for about 10 miles. Suddenly, they saw a bonfire. 2 trees were burning in the middle of the road, illuminating the faces around them. There were more than 10 people sitting around the bonfire, not saying a word. Zhao Ying looked at Chu Li. Chu Li signaled her to be careful. He quietly passed through the forest and went around them. In the forest, he would stop abruptly, walk quickly, and stop again and again. At first, Zhao Ying felt that it was very strange, but later on, she realized that he was avoiding the traps one after another. There were a lot of traps in this forest, and it was impossible to guard against them. Touching one would alert the group of people. Furthermore, she discovered that there was a group of people hiding in the forest, and they were silent. She thought that it was a close call. Did they set up an ambush just for the two of them? They killed too many people and angered the raging tiger troop. Did they set up an ambush for the two of them? When she thought of this, Zhao Ying broke out in a cold sweat. They must have sent out an innate master. It was too dangerous. Chu Li brought her along as they moved stealthily, avoiding all the traps and the people who were lying in ambush. They managed to escape without any mishap and entered a new forest. His speed suddenly increased, and Zhao Ying was still dragged along even though she used her light body technique. Chapter 22. We dodged it. Zhao Ying lowered her voice. Chu Li nodded lightly. We finally dodged it. What a huge formation. Was it for us? Yes. Zhao Ying frowned. We took so long to come back. Have they been like this all this time? She was shocked. It had been a month. They had probably been on guard for a whole month. Their defenses were still so tight. This was not something a bunch of rabble could do. It required rigorous training. The Raging Tiger Troop was just an ordinary lush forest troop. For them to go this far, it was obvious how angry they were. Chu pondered. Among the people we killed, there might be some important people. If that's the case, Zhao Ying suddenly understood. Could it be the young master of the troop? It's possible. Chu smiled. He vaguely felt that there was something wrong with the identity of the three bald men. They were killed by him. He seemed to be called the 10th Master. Could he be the 10th Master of the Raging Tiger Troop? That was interesting. These people are horrible, Zhao Ying said with hatred. Their deaths are not to be regretted. I will report this to my superiors and ask them to kill these scum. The Raging Tiger Troop had defiled countless women and killed countless men, yet they allowed them to roam free and unfettered. God was blind. Our mission this time is top secret. Damn it. Train hard. Once you've mastered your martial arts, you will destroy the Raging Tiger Troop. How long will that take? Zhao Ying said unwillingly. Even if I become an innate master, there are innate masters in the Raging Tiger Troop. Chu said, there will always be a way. Zhao Ying rolled her eyes. She frowned and thought of a way to destroy the Raging Tiger Troop. After resting for a while, she suddenly felt a need to go to the bathroom. She looked at Chu embarrassedly. Chu was using the omniscient mirror to observe the surrounding 3 miles. There was no movement, but this was only temporary. He thought that the Raging Tiger Troop would not just set up an ambush in one place. There must be many checkpoints. Zhao Ying looked at Chu again. Chu felt something was wrong and turned to look at her. Zhao Ying's cheeks were red. She said shyly, I'm going out for a while. Chu was startled. He immediately understood and whispered, Don't go too far. Don't be careless. Zhao Ying nodded and ran away. She knew that Chu ability was profound, and if she got too close, he would definitely hear her. That would be too embarrassing. So she ran a little further away. Chu had no choice but to put away the omniscient mirror. Otherwise, it would be too dirty. After a while, Chu frowned. Could it be a major? He held back his doubts and did not use the omniscient mirror. After a while, he could not hold it in anymore and activated the omniscient mirror. Zhao Ying was nowhere to be seen within a 3-mile radius. His heart sank, and he stood up. The omniscient mirror went into detail and followed Zhao Ying's footprints. Soon, it stopped under a pine tree. There was another person's footprint there. It was barely visible and could not be seen by ordinary people, but it could not be hidden from the omniscient mirror. Chu speculated that this person's light body technique was top-notch, and his inner energy was deep and exquisite. He was definitely an innate master. This was too much of a coincidence. This innate master must have just chased after him. Otherwise, he would have been discovered by the omniscient mirror. Coincidentally, when he put away the omniscient mirror, he appeared and caught Zhao Ying. He took a deep breath. His anger and anxiety were surging, but he was suppressed by the omniscient mirror. The most important thing now was to save Zhao Ying. Otherwise, he did not know what would happen. Thinking of a woman falling into the Raging Tiger Troop made him anxious. Although his heart was burning, his mind was still as calm as ice. He used the omniscient mirror and followed the person's footprints. The person's light body technique was superb. Even with Zhao Ying, the footprints were barely visible. He needed the omniscient mirror to see them clearly. He chased after them. He was as fast as lightning, but he could not catch up. He was too far behind. Chu sighed to himself. It seemed like he could only barge into the Raging Tiger Troop. He did not have full confidence, but in this situation, he could not call for help. He could only barge in alone. Zhao Ying could not wait for even a moment. lest something tragic happened. After chasing for more than 10 miles, his expression changed. A group of people appeared in front of him, blocking his way. There were cliffs on both sides. There was no other way but to barge in. 24 people, each holding a long knife, looked fierce and had a faint murderous aura. Chuli could tell at a glance that they had killed more than one person. How many people had the raging tiger troop killed? Young man. A man stepped forward and pointed his knife at Chuli. Stop! The other 23 people rushed over with their knives. Chuli frowned. Under the omniscient mirror, their thoughts could not be hidden. They killed no one. It did not matter if it was Chuli or not. As long as they saw a man or woman holding a weapon, they would kill them. His face darkened. He was furious. Who knew how many people had been killed in the past month? He did not kill them, but they died because of him. He felt guilty. His anger turned into murderous intent. He pulled out his sword, and in a flash, he slipped into the crowd like a ghost. The sword flashed. In a flash, one person fell. In the blink of an eye, 24 men were lying on the ground, clutching their throats and trembling. Their blood seeped into the soil and turned dark red, exuding a strong smell of blood. Chuli shook his long sword and used a man's shirt to wipe it clean. He shook his body to get rid of the smell of blood on his clothes and continued to chase. These 24 people had good martial arts, but they were all below the innate mastery level. In front of him, they were no different than targets. He only felt delighted and had no hesitation. His figure fluttered as he chased after the footprints. After another 10 miles, he came to a small pavilion. It was a pavilion for resting. It was full of traces of wind and rain. A middle-aged man in a green shirt stood in the pavilion with his hands behind his back. His face was like jade, and his green shirt fluttered in the wind. Chuli came to the pavilion and glanced at the middle-aged man. He looked at his feet and frowned. "Are you waiting for me here?" The middle-aged man stroked his beard and smiled. "Are you the lover of that young lady?" He had a sharp nose and a handsome face. His smile was like the sun, giving people a good impression. Chuli said coldly, "Are you from the Raging Tiger Troop?" "Ranked 5th. The middle-aged man smiled. "I have not asked for your name yet. Don't worry. The young lady is not in danger. We are only inviting her to the mountain as a guest. We will not hurt her." "Ranked 5th. Chuli scoffed. "How many people are in charge of your troop?" 10 brothers. The middle-aged man sighed. "The 10th brother was useless and was killed by you. He did not improve himself all these years and did not become an innate master. He deserved to be killed." Chuli looked at him coldly. The middle-aged man stroked his beard and sighed. "But we are all brothers. We must avenge his death. So we had to do something. You understand?" Chuli said coldly. "So you killed the innocent." He. The middle-aged man shook his head and laughed. "Heaven and earth are heartless. Who is truly innocent in this world? Aren't you afraid of angering the public by doing this?" Chuli looked at him curiously. The middle-aged man shook his head and laughed. "What do we have to be afraid of? Who would dare to attack the Raging Tiger Troop?" "How arrogant!" Chuli sneered. The middle-aged man smiled and looked at him. "You are a genius. Which faction do you belong to?" "I am afraid that I will scare you." He. The middle-aged man stroked his beard and laughed. He shook his head. "Then all the more reason to keep you. Why don't you join the Raging Tiger Troop?" Chuli shook his head. The young man stroked his beard and smiled. "The Raging Tiger Troop has the most freedom. It is much more comfortable than in the faction. We have many innate masters, and we can spar with each other. We are free and unfettered." "How many innate masters does the Raging Tiger Troop have?" 9. Chu Li used the omniscient mirror to check and knew that he was lying. The Raging Tiger Troop had a total of 12 innate masters. The 10th one did not reach the innate master's boundary because he went mad during his cultivation. He lost his martial arts and had to start from scratch. The other 13 were all innate masters. The Raging Tiger Troop had a rule. As long as one reached the innate master level, he could become a Raging Tiger Troop's leader. 9 innate masters can do whatever they want. Chu Li shook his head. They are asking for it. My junior sisters, where are you hiding? In the troop. The middle-aged man smiled. As long as you can break into the troop, we will let you go. Is that fair? Chu Li frowned. Half of what he said was true, and the other half was false. Zhao Ying had indeed been taken to the Raging Tiger Troop, but it was impossible to let her go. They wanted to kill him and keep Zhao Ying as their plaything. Chu Li looked at him. So, I have to get past you first? Of course. The middle-aged man stroked his beard and smiled. If you can't get past me, then don't even think about entering the troop. Brother, you are still young. It is a pity. Are you sure you don't want to join us? Chu Li pulled out his long sword and looked at him quietly. Come. Sigh. What a pity. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed. He looked regretful. Chu Li activated 3 layers of the infinite azure sea and appeared in front of him like a ghost. The tip of his sword pierced into the man's chest. Chu Li quickly pulled the sword out and slit his throat. Ding! The sound of metal clashing could be heard. The man blocked his throat with his sword and stared at Chu Li in disbelief. Chu Li did not stop and stabbed him again. The man raised his sword, but his movement suddenly stopped. He could only watch as the long sword pierced into his throat. He pulled the sword out and blood spurted out of his throat. He wanted to say something, but he could not. He wanted to scold Chu Li for sneaking an attack. A strange inner energy suddenly drilled into his body and disrupted the circulation of his inner energy. With this disruption, he could not dodge the long sword. Chu Li pulled out his sword and retreated. He looked at the man quietly and said coldly, "Don't worry. Your brothers will accompany you on your journey." The man raised his finger with difficulty. His body gradually tilted and finally fell to the ground with a thud. He was still trembling. Fresh blood flowed out and dyed the pagoda red. Chapter 23. He flew up and followed the footprints. After the middle-aged man took Zhao Ying to the gazebo, someone took her away. Chu Li followed the footprints, but he did not know the location of the Raging Tiger Troop. He chased for 5 miles and arrived at the middle of the Raging Tiger Troop. He was confused. The troop should be built halfway up the mountain, but there was no Raging Tiger Troop within 3 miles. It could be built on the other side of the mountain. The person who took Zhao Ying was not as good as the middle-aged man. The footprints were much clearer. It could be that he was deliberately leading Chu Li into an ambush. With the omniscient mirror, Chu Li had nothing to fear. He could see the ambush in advance. He could avoid it if he wanted to. He used the omniscient mirror to see a group of people. About a mile away from Chu Li, where the footprints passed, 4 bald men were sitting quietly on a huge rock. Their eyes were closed, and they looked calm and solemn. Their bodies were filled with murderous intent. They came prepared, and they did not come with good intentions. Chu Li could tell from their attire that they were masters from the Raging Tiger Troop. They were all innate masters. Did they think that they were safe? Chu Li slowed down. Spiritual energy surged through his body. He had entered the innate mastery's boundary. The scripture of life and death had improved as well. He could manipulate the spiritual energy of the plants and trees. In such an environment, His inner energy was endless. He was fearless. When he was about 100 meters away, the 4 bald men were still sitting quietly on the rock. They slowly opened their eyes and looked at him coldly, as if they were looking at an ant. One of the bald men snorted, "You are that boy. How dare you?" "Beauty is the bane of all heroes." The bald man next to him snorted, "He is so young. How could he resist a beauty? He had to come." "You are from the Raging Tiger Troop?" Chuli asked. "That's right. My junior sister was kidnapped by you." "That's right. Hand her over. As long as you can defeat us. Take this." Li suddenly swung his left hand, and a cold light shot out. Ugh. The bald man in front covered his throat. There was a flying knife in his throat. He stared at Li in disbelief. He slowly fell to the ground. His body trembled, but he did not die immediately. "Old Six!" The 3 bald men cried out in surprise. They sprang up and pounced towards Li. Their long swords were like a silver waterfall hanging in the air. Li fluttered backward and landed on a tree. When they got close to him, he leaped sideways and easily dodged them. The 3 bald men also landed on the tree and then sprang at him. Ugh. Li swung his arm again, and a cold light shot out. A bald man fell from the sky, clutching his throat. Bam! He landed heavily on the ground and stomped a few times. Then he stiffened and stopped moving. "There's something strange about this kid's flying knife. Let's go." The remaining 2 bald men turned around and ran. Chuli sneered. Inner energy from all directions surged into his body, and after overlapping, his speed became incredibly fast. Once again, he shot out 2 flying blades, and the 2 men died without any resistance. Li let out a long sigh of relief and leaned against the tree. The spiritual force of the plants nourished his meridians. His meridians were greatly burdened by the 4 consecutive slashes. The combination of the life and death scripture, the innate realm, and the sacrificial saber technique was indeed shocking. If they were in the city, Li would not be able to do it so easily without the help of plants. However, the current environment was the best for him. The sacrificial saber technique was already powerful, fast, and accurate. When the flying blades were about to reach them, the life and death scripture suddenly activated, and the sudden inner energy drilled into their bodies, causing their movements to pause. This pause was the moment of life and death. He took a few breaths, and while letting the spiritual force of the plants nourish his meridians, he continued to follow the footprints. After about 200 meters, he went around the mountainside and arrived in front of a cave. The entrance of the Raging Tiger Troop was actually a cave. 1 man could hold the pass against 10,000 enemies. Not to mention the traps, there must be countless hidden weapons. He thought for a moment, and then let out a long whistle. He picked up a boulder and threw it into the dark cave. The boulder was about half the height of a person, and it was about the same size as a person going in. Bang, 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 bang. A series of sounds were heard, and Li went in. The hidden weapons were all over the ground. Blue lights flashed occasionally, and a sweet smell wafted in the air. This was caused by the poison on the hidden weapons. His feet did not touch the ground, and he glided forward. Soon his eyes brightened. In front of him was a valley. He was standing on the mountainside, and there was a group of people standing below. Li glanced around. This valley was really a good place. It was warm and pleasant, and it was very well hidden. There must be other exits in the valley. No wonder they were so unscrupulous. If it were not for the footprints, even with the omniscient mirror, it would have taken him a lot of effort to find this place. The mountainside was about 100 meters away from the valley, and it was 30 stories high. The group of people below looked at him coldly. Their eyes were like knives, as if they wanted to cut him into pieces. Chu Li glanced at them. There were 122 people. There were 6 innate masters, 34 perfected acquired masters, and the rest were nothing to worry about. However, all of them were holding long knives, and their murderous aura was not to be underestimated. Chu Li thought that he still had 10 flying blades, enough to kill innate masters. He looked carefully with the omniscient mirror and found Zhao Ying. He let out a sigh of relief. "Young man, if you want your wife, you'd better surrender. Or else, we'll have a good time with her first." A bald man, with a ring scar on his head, said coldly. Chu Li glanced at the bald man. The ring scar on his head showed that he was originally a monk. 6 ring scars meant that his status was not low. Chu Li did not know which temple he came from. He came from the Temple of Autumn, so he knew that there were good and bad monks mixed together. He could not be treated as a group. The monks of the Tempest Temple were strict, and because of the strict enforcement of the law, they did not allow the slightest bit of selfishness. The other temples might not be the same. Chu Li said lightly, "If you dare to touch my sister, I'll wipe out the entire Raging Tiger Troop." The ring-scarred man laughed out loud. His majestic body made a sound like a bronze bell. He laughed twice. "All right, I'd like to see if you have the ability to do so. Come on down." Chu Li scoffed. "You guys are really cowards. You don't dare to fight me one-on-one. The Raging Tiger Troop, you guys are even more cowardly than a mouse." "Leader, I'll go," a skinny bald man said in a deep voice. "We can't let this brat be so arrogant." Chu Li mocked them in front of everyone. They had always been arrogant and looked down on everyone. How could they allow Chu Li to be so presumptuous? "Third brother, be careful. This brat is a bit strange." The ring-scarred man frowned. "I know," the bald man said in a deep voice. His body was skinny, but every move he made contained great strength like a leopard. A wide bluestone staircase led to where Chu Li was. The bald man climbed up the stairs like a monkey and leaped towards Chu Li. With his speed, 100 meters could be covered in the blink of an eye. Chu Li drew his sword and used the omniscient mirror to observe the man inside and out. The speed at which the man's inner energy was circulating, the rhythm of his movements, and the flexion and extension of his muscles were all clearly displayed in his mind. When he got close, the bald man roared and pounced on Chu Li like a ferocious tiger. Chu Li stabbed, and the sword flashed, then he floated backwards. The bald man covered his throat and stared at him. He slowly fell down the stairs. The ring-scarred man flew to catch him and put him down slowly after he landed. His face was so gloomy that it looked like it was going to drip water. There was no hope left. The sword pierced through his throat. Blood gushed out like a fountain, and he stopped breathing. It was obvious that his brain was crushed. It was extremely vicious. He looked up at Chu Li, who was in the air, his eyes flashing fiercely. Chu Li shook his head. "That's all you've got." His sword strike caused everyone to feel a chill in their hearts. It was too fast and too ruthless, and even they didn't have the confidence to face this strike. One strike to kill, one strike to decide life and death. The awe-inspiring third leader had already become a corpse. Chu Li said, "Come on, leader." "Good boy, come down or don't blame me for destroying a flower." The ring-scarred man sneered. This brat was so strange that he could not fight him head-on. Otherwise, the losses would be too great. It seemed that the brothers who went to block the way did not encounter him, but were defeated by him. Thinking of this, his murderous intent grew. He had to kill this brat no matter what. Chu Li sneered. "If I come down, will I be able to save my junior sister?" He activated the omniscient mirror and the entire valley appeared in his mind. Zhao was sitting cross-legged in a hidden cave. The cave entrance was covered by green vines. If it was not for the omniscient mirror, he would not have found this cave. There was an innate master sitting in a cave about 100 meters south of him. Zhao sat in the pitch-black cave. The cold air kept drilling into her pores. She couldn't move at all. It was extremely cold. She tried to think. Her acupuncture point was sealed, and there was a master beside her. There was no chance for her to escape. She did not know if Chu Li could find her. She was conflicted. She wanted Chu Li to find her and save her, but she was also worried that he would find her. The raging tiger troop was a dangerous place with an innate master. If Chu Li came, he would die. Chu Li's laughter suddenly came. She was happy but anxious at the same time. She tried to get up, but her body was weak and she could not move at all. The bald man beside her opened his eyes and stared at her coldly. "Stay here." Zhao Ying opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her acupuncture point had been sealed. The bald man sneered. "You're an infatuated man. He would give up his life for you. Since you're here, don't even think about leaving. Good people don't live long. This is the reality. You should just give up." Zhao Ying opened her mouth and stared at him. The bald man closed his eyes and ignored her. Chu Li stood on the stairs and looked down at the crowd. He suddenly laughed. "All right, I'll come down now." He tapped the ground with the tip of his foot and dashed out horizontally, covering 100 meters in just 2 steps. He activated the art of infinite azure sea and shot into the cave. Before the bald man could react, a beam of cold light shot into his chest and appeared in front of Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying's eyes widened. She was overjoyed. Chu Li reached out and pulled her onto his back. He turned around and rushed to the cave entrance. His inner energy flowed into her body, and all the acupuncture points were cleared. Zhao Ying quickly said, "Brother, why are you here?" Chu Li smiled. "Why wouldn't I be here?" The two of them had already reached the cave entrance. A flash of a knife suddenly appeared. Ding! Chu Li pointed his long sword, and the knife and sword clashed. He quickly followed up with another flash of the knife, followed by a few more flashes of the knife. The people outside wanted to seal the cave entrance and trap them. Zhao Ying quickly pulled out her sword and stabbed it. Ding! The long sword flew out. The inner energy flowed through her arm and into her meridians. She felt a sharp pain as if her meridians were being torn apart. Fortunately, a warm inner energy flowed into her chest and dissolved the inner energy. Zhao Ying was shocked. An innate master. Chapter 24. Chu Li whispered, "Be a good girl and don't move. We can't get out." Zhao Ying shook her numb arms and whispered. The two of them stood at the entrance of the cave, unable to get out. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. "Hold on tight. Let's get out." Zhao Ying quickly hugged his neck and laid on his back. His solid back gave her warmth and a sense of security. It was as if there was nothing to be afraid of as long as she lay there. Chu Li took a deep breath and overlaid the infinite azure sea again. With the two combined, his power doubled. Then he used his sword to protect his body and rushed out. Ding, 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 ding. Chu Li shot out of the cave with the sound of swords clashing. There were 4 bald men standing at the entrance of the cave, glaring at him. Chu Li glided away with the 4 men chasing after him. In the blink of an eye, he arrived at the entrance of the raging tiger troop. Just as he was about to enter the cave, a sudden flash of light appeared. It was from the rings card man. Chu Li had the omniscient mirror, so he had already seen that the rings card man was hiding in the cave and was ready to strike. Chu Li moved his body lightly and dodged the blade. Then He thrust his long sword forward and hit the ring-scarred man's long blade before he could gather his strength. Ding! The long sword flew out of his hand. The ring-scarred man did not care. He straightened his body, and his whole body suddenly expanded. There was a faint golden light around his body. He swung his fist at Chu Li. Chu Li pulled out his sword and stabbed at the fist. Ding! The sound of metal clashing was heard. Chu Li was shocked. The sentient menace? Humph, at least you know something. The ring-scarred man sneered and swung his fist again. Chu Li was shocked. The sentient menace was an antique study of the Tempest Temple. Could it be that this guy was a disciple of the Tempest Temple? That would be troublesome. The Tempest Temple was the leader of the 4 major sections. How dare you? Chu Li said in a low voice. A traitor of the temple dares to be so arrogant. The Tempest Temple had strict rules. He must have broken them. The Temple Commandment Hall would hunt him down no matter what. Once he was caught, he would be killed. Under such circumstances, he actually dared to openly build a stronghold. It could be said that he was extremely daring. From the looks of it, he was determined to kill him. Once his identity was exposed, he would not be able to live. No matter how strong he was, he would not be able to escape the pursuit of the Tempest Temple. As he thought of this, Chu Li suddenly glided backward and faced the 4 men who were chasing after him. The 4 men surrounded him. Chu Li's body moved swiftly, and his sword moved like lightning. They were all innate masters, and his inner energy was endless. Coupled with the infinite azure sea, he was able to suppress the 4 men. In the blink of an eye, he stabbed one of them. "Move aside, I'll do it," the ring-scarred man shouted in a deep voice. His body flashed with a golden light as he charged at Chu Li. His palms glowed faintly as he faced Chu Li's sword head-on. Zhao Ying was secretly anxious. This guy's eyeballs seemed to have turned yellow, and his whole body seemed to have been painted with a layer of gold paint. It was really strange, but really powerful. It was as if he was really made of copper, and no matter how she stabbed him, she couldn't hurt him. Chu Li glided away to avoid him, then flashed behind another innate master and stabbed him in the back. The other 2 saw that the situation was not good and quickly ran away, but they were chased by Chu Li. He avoided the ring-scarred man and first took care of the other innate masters. The 2 levels of the infinite azure sea were overlaid, and the spiritual force of the plants within a 200-meter radius continuously flowed into him, nourishing his meridians. He knew about the sentient menace. There was a description of it in the library. The sentient menace was powerful and impenetrable, but the depth of the level determined the length of time it could be maintained. More importantly, it consumed a lot of inner energy. An innate master's inner energy was endless, but it could not keep up with the consumption of the sentient menace. Therefore, the sentient menace could not be maintained for long. Chu Li did not believe that this guy who broke the precept could maintain it for too long. The 2 men's body technique was not as good as Chu Li's, and they were in the cave. In the end, they could not escape from Chu Li's pursuit, and were killed one by one. They wanted to die with Chu Li, but they could not. Zhao Ying watched the innate masters being killed like pigs. She was excited and surprised. She really did not expect him to have such martial arts. No, Wonder Brother Zhuo was not his opponent. The difference was too big. She was full of doubts. She had to ask, did he have a fortuitous encounter? When she thought of this, she became excited. Any martial artist would look forward to having a fortuitous encounter, obtaining a peerless secret manual, or consuming a heavenly fruit, shocking the world with a single brilliant feat, becoming invincible in the world, and running amok in the world. In the end, Chu Li faced the ring-scarred man. His sword flashed, and the sound of metal clashing was heard. Zhao was dazzled. She did not expect a sword to be so fast. Chu Li's sword was like lightning, and the ring-scarred man did not have time to dodge. In a short while, he was completely naked. Zhao blushed and did not dare to look down. The sword stabbed into the ring-scarred man's body, but it was like it had met with metal. It could not pierce through, as if it could not do anything to him. However, Chu Li was not discouraged and continued to attack. The ring-scarred man sneered. He did not care about Chu Li's sword. He only wanted to hit Chu Li. Unfortunately, Chu Li's body technique was so fast that he could not touch him, like a stupid bear. The ring-scarred man said in a low voice, "You can't break the sentient menace." Chu Li scoffed, "I don't believe it. Let's see who can exhaust the other to death." The ring-scarred man scoffed. He wanted to retreat. Where there's life, there's hope. If he waited until his inner energy was exhausted, then it would be troublesome. He had to leave quickly. He wanted to leave, but he could not show it. If he was seen through, he would chase after him relentlessly. Chu Li suddenly turned around and left. He flew out of the cave, slid down the stone steps, and landed in the valley. Then he waved his sword and started a massacre. These masters who had not reached the innate mastery level were like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. They were defenseless. Chu Li did not hesitate to kill them. He had no mercy. These people deserved to die. If he let them live, who knew how many people would be harmed? "Brother." Zhao Ying felt numb as she watched from behind. Chu Li's sword was too fast. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 people fell to the ground. It was as if he was cutting grass. She could not bear to watch. Chu Li scoffed. They deserved to die 100 times for what they did. Zhao Ying did not say anything. It was reasonable, but she could not bear to watch these people being killed without any resistance. She could only use her rationality to calm her heart and shut her eyes. The valley was filled with endless curses. They were all ferocious. In the face of Chu Li's massacre, they were not afraid. Instead, they cursed and pounced on him. Each of them wanted to die together with Chu Li. They wanted to catch Chu Li before they died. They wanted to block him and give their companions a chance. Chu Li's sword was like lightning. His body technique was extremely fast. None of them succeeded. Chapter 25. Chu Li sneered and pretended not to know. He slaughtered all the people from the raging tiger troop, leaving no one alive. He found those who tried to hide and killed them without mercy. There was a long line of buildings in the valley. Small courtyards were connected together, and there was a hall in the middle. The hall was covered with a thick carpet, and the aroma of meat and wine lingered in the air. 50 women were naked and lying on the ground like white sheep, waiting for the men to play with them. They heard the screams and curses. They trembled in fear, but did not dare to come out to see what was happening. When Chu Li came in, they all widened their eyes and looked at him with fear and curiosity. Chu Li glanced at the women and did not change his expression. Zhao Ying blushed. Chu Li whispered, "Sister, help them settle down. Send them home. Why don't they stay here for now?" "Okay." Zhao Ying thought about it and nodded helplessly. They would not have a good life if they went back. It was better to stay here. Chu Li said, "Choose a leader and let them make their own arrangements. This place must be sealed and no outsiders can come in. They can be self-sufficient and there will be no danger. If you are worried, you can come and take a look in the future." "Okay." Zhao Ying nodded. Chu Li put her down and flew out of the cave. He caught up with the scarred man 10 miles away. His face was pale, and he was panting like a bull. His movements were slow and sluggish, as if he was injured. He had already escaped to the side of a large river. The river flowed from west to east. When he was about to jump into the river, Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of him and blocked him with his sword. "Young brother, let people go when possible," the scarred man said. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. "You have sinned too much. I cannot let you live." He raised his hand. Chi, a white light flashed and shot into the scarred man's throat. He flew backwards. Chu Li leaped into the air and caught him. If he really fell into the river, he would not be able to find his body. The scarred man held his throat and widened his eyes. Chu Li said, "Where is the secret manual?" The middle-aged man with the scar suddenly sneered and looked at him mockingly. His smile grew wider and wider, and his body suddenly trembled. Then his body sank, and he breathed his last. Chu Li slowly put him down and exhaled 2 mouthfuls of murky air. He had used the Eternity Blade just now, which was the true power of his entire body. It was a blade that was more powerful than usual. He knew that his opponent had a trump card. The disciples of the Tempest Temple were not to be underestimated. If he could not kill him in one strike, he would use a secret technique to stimulate his potential and risk his life to kill him. The surging spiritual energy in the surroundings gushed into his body, replenishing his empty meridians and nourishing his meridians, allowing him to recover swiftly. He carried the corpse and glided up the mountain. He ran all the way to the top of the mountain and stopped under a pine tree. This old pine tree seemed to be dying, but it was still full of vitality. Half of its branches extended out of the cliff, while the other half remained at the top of the mountain, gently swaying in the wind. Chu Li dug a meter away from its roots. The soil was hard, but it could not stop Chu Li's longsword. Soon, a ding sound was heard as he hit a stone slab. Chu Li used his sword to pick up the stone slab and quickly retreated. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. A large amount of blue light shot out like rain. If he did not know about this trap beforehand, it would have been difficult to avoid it. It was extremely vicious. When the blue light fell to the ground, Chu Li took another stone and threw it. Bang! A dull sound was heard. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Another blue light shot out. After the blue light fell to the ground, Chu Li went closer and picked up a stone box with his sword. When he opened it, there was a yellowed silk book with the words "Sentient Menace" written on it. Chu Li picked it up and flipped through it. There were 36 pages in total, and each page had a posture. The 36 postures were vivid and lifelike. He could not see the monk's face clearly, but he could see the changes in each muscle. The inner energy of the monk, one blue and one red, was clearly marked. Chu Li flipped through it once and imprinted it in his mind. He then flipped through it again to make sure there were no mistakes. He gently pressed on the silk book with his inner energy and carefully placed it back into the stone box. The stone box was buried and everything returned to its original state. The next person to open the stone box would find the silk book. However, as soon as they touched the silk book, they would immediately be blown away by the wind and turned into dust. They would definitely be in a bad mood. Thinking about this, Chu Li smiled. He was in a good mood. He buried the body of the ring-scarred man next to the stone box and flew back to the cave. When he entered the raging tiger troop, Zhao Ying had already gathered all the women together. There were a total of 160 women, and all of them were beautiful. The women who were not beautiful had already been killed by them. The ones that were left behind were worth toying with. Chu Li did not disturb Zhao Ying. He found the bedroom of the ring-scarred man and rummaged through it. He found 300,000 silver notes and put them in his pocket. He then flew into the hall and came to Zhao Ying's side. "Sister, let's go." Zhao Ying looked at the women reluctantly. She told them not to worry. She would seal the entrance of the cave and no one would be able to enter. She told them to live in peace, and that she would visit them when she had time. Chu Li and Zhao Ying sealed the cave and covered it with green vines to ensure that no one would be able to see through it. Just in case, Chu Li moved a huge rock into the cave. Even an innate master would have to spend a lot of effort to enter the cave. Those who were below the innate master level would not be able to move the rock. Seeing this, Zhao Ying was relieved. "Brother, they are so pitiful." The two of them said as they used their light body technique. Chu Li smiled. "They are pitiful. Let's find a place to settle them down in the future." "How do we settle them down?" Zhao Ying shook her head and sighed. She felt helpless. "Why don't we report this to the public house? They must have a way." Chu Li shook his head. "Why not? Let's open a restaurant. 2 restaurants should be enough to settle them down." "Ah, I found some silver." Chu Li took out the silver notes and handed it to Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying was stunned. She took the notes and looked at them. Her expression changed. She looked at him in surprise. 300,000 silver? Chu Li nodded. "It's enough to open 2 restaurants." But Zhao Ying hesitated. Chapter 26. Zhao Ying nodded. "Opening a restaurant. Will the public house agree?" "You don't know? The public house encourages this." Chu Li smiled. "Sister, don't worry. Leave it to me. I will handle it." He had lived 2 lives and had a thirst for power. He was more concerned about the bigger picture. He had analyzed all of this before. The public house had strict rules that forbade bullying and using their status as guards. If they did, they would be punished according to the public house's rules. Most people thought that the public house forbade guards from doing business, but Chu Li knew that it was for different industries. Normal industries were not allowed, but restaurants were not. 300,000 silver. Zhao Ying shook her head. "Those bastards deserve to die." Needless to say, these silvers were obtained from robberies. How many people did they rob? And how many people died in vain under their blades? The raging tiger troop always killed people directly when they robbed, leaving no way out. That was why their evil deeds had not been exposed, and they had been able to live freely until now. Using the money to build a place for them to live is the right way. "Okay, let's try it. Leave it to me." "Oh, right. What is your martial arts level now?" "Innate mastery." "I thought I couldn't cultivate inner energy without foundation?" Chu Li smiled. "Did you have some kind of adventure?" "Sort of." "What adventure?" Zhao Ying's eyes lit up and asked excitedly. Chu Li shook his head. "Nothing much. I just ate a fruit, and that's it." "What fruit?" "I don't know. Maybe it's the transformation fruit." Zhao Ying tilted her head and asked curiously, "Could it be that this fruit can help you build your foundation?" Chu Li smiled. "You'll know when you read some books." "Brother, you're too lucky." Chu Li shook his head. "If I was lucky, I wouldn't have missed the opportunity to build my foundation and wouldn't have to suffer so much." "That's true." Zhao Ying nodded. She had seen Chu Li's predicament with her own eyes. Because he couldn't cultivate without foundation, he had suffered too much. He had been mocked and humiliated by others. "When did you eat the transformation fruit?" Chu Li shook his head and changed the topic. "The metamorphosis fruit can only make up for the foundation building. Innate mastery still has to be cultivated by oneself. It can't be achieved overnight. In this world, there is no miraculous medicine that can allow one to reach innate mastery just by eating it." "Innate." Zhao Ying sighed. When she thought of the congenital realm, she felt as if she was standing at the foot of a towering mountain that pierced through the clouds. She was filled with fear and didn't have the confidence to climb over it. Chu Li smiled and said, "Your foundation is very solid. It won't be a problem." "Yes." Zhao Ying nodded vigorously to encourage herself. Senior Marshal Brother had given him a lot of tendon-clearing pills. His meridians were much stronger than ordinary people, and he had a huge advantage over others. He would definitely be able to enter the Sciention realm. The two of them used their light body technique, and their speed was not any slower than riding a horse. After running for half a day, Zhao Ying's inner energy was depleted. Chu Li placed his hand on her back and channeled an endless stream of inner energy into her. She could feel the purity and depth of Chu Li's inner energy. Out of curiosity, she asked him what heart technique he was cultivating. When she heard that it was the Infinite Azure Sea, she was shocked. The Infinite Azure Sea was very famous, but very few people cultivated it. It was because she was very curious about it. She heard that it was extremely powerful and that it could be used to defeat the masters of the same generation. However, cultivating it was like drinking poison to quench thirst. It was no different from suicide. Senior Marshal Brother, the Infinite Azure Sea is very dangerous. I know. Then why are you cultivating it? Oh, I understand now. The tendon-clearing grass. She slapped her forehead and suddenly understood. The tendon-clearing grass made the meridians extraordinarily tough and could withstand the overlaying of inner energy. It could also reduce the harm caused by the Infinite Azure Sea. Chu Li smiled. No wonder. She also understood why Chu Li was so powerful and invincible. The power of the Infinite Azure Sea was not just for show. The two of them rushed back to the public house in one breath. After entering the public house, they went their separate ways. Zhao Ying went to the martial arts hall to submit her mission, while Chu Li went back to the East Garden to recuperate. In the evening, Chu Li went to the Moonlight Orchid Garden after dinner. The Moonlight Orchid emitted a warm glow like a crescent moon. It was beautiful. Without the nourishment of his spiritual energy, the nightmare flower grew very slowly. It bloomed tonight. The Moonlight Orchid, on the other hand, was growing very well. There were already 3 seedlings. Li Yu had done a good job. Light footsteps could be heard, bringing with it a faint fragrance. Chu Li turned his head and saw Su Ru in an apricot gown walking towards him. She was beautiful. She waved her hand, indicating that Chu Li did not need to be so polite. She sat opposite him. Well done. Chu Li sat down and poured her a cup of tea. Did you receive it? Yes. Su Ru took the cup and took a sip. She smiled. Li Yu's tea is really good. It's quite interesting. Lady Xiao is very satisfied. Chu Li smiled. Was the journey smooth? Su Ru looked at him with a faint smile. Was the protector competent? Chu Li closed fist saluted and smiled. Thank you, Chief. Su Ru waved her hand. Don't thank me. I've given you a chance. Whether you can grasp it or not depends on yourself. That was a close call. We encountered the Raging Tiger Troop. The Raging Tiger Troop. I've heard of them. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. Does the public house know about the Raging Tiger Troop's actions? Su Ru saw that his expression was not right. She frowned. Did they offend you? It's fine if they offended me, but they... Chu Li scoffed and told her everything they had done. Su Ru pursed her lips and stared at him with a gloomy face. The air around them seemed to have frozen. She was also an innate master. Her aura was extraordinary. She was able to combine her acquired environment with her cultivation level to form a tangible force. Damn it, Su Ru said coldly. The patrol of the public house should die. Chu Li shook his head. This incident was originally the responsibility of the public house, but they robbed and killed. No one reported it. If the public house turned a blind eye to it, there's really no way to get involved. No matter which dynasty or which court, the bureaucrats were all the same. They would not take the initiative to solve problems. Su Ru scoffed. This is the responsibility of the patrol. These people did not do anything. I will report this to Lady Xiao. She will investigate this thoroughly. The raging tiger troop has been destroyed. Chu Li shook his head and told her what he had done. Su Ru's eyes widened in disbelief. Chu Li shrugged. There are only a few pitiful women left in the raging tiger troop. Lady Xiao can send someone to take a look. Su Ru frowned and pondered for a moment. She thought about it from beginning to end. She asked, "The raging tiger troop has an innate master, right?" Chu Li nodded and told her about his adventure. It was the same as what he had told Zhaoying. "So you're an innate master now?" "Yes." "Then do you want to challenge the ranking tower?" "I don't want to be a protector. Being a scribe is good." "Being a scribe is good. Interesting." Su Ru pursed her lips and smiled. "There aren't many people as smart as you. They're all attracted by the high salary of being a protector." Chu Li said, "These women are pitiful. I want to open a restaurant in town so they can support themselves. The raging tiger troop has a lot of money." He did not hide his gains. A place like the raging tiger troop must have a lot of money. It would not be nice to hide it. The rule of the public house was that they could keep what they earned. Opening a restaurant. Su Ru frowned and shook her head. "It's not that easy, but your idea is good. They should support themselves, so they don't have to think about it all day long." As a woman, she liked Chu Li's way of doing things. The key to a restaurant is the taste. If the food is not good, they can't do anything. Su Ru thought about it and said, "We need to find a way to poach a few chefs from the fairy's capital." "Yes. All right, leave it to me. I'll help you this once for their sake." "Thank you, Chief." Chu Li closed fist saluted. He pondered for a while and said, "Destroying the raging tiger troop this time was like poking a hornet's nest." "Good job." Su Ru scoffed. "What hornet's nest?" Chu Li shook his head. "The leader of the raging tiger troop knows the sentient menace." "What?" Su Ru was stunned. Her expression changed. "The sentient menace?" Chu Li nodded slowly. "The Tempest Temple. This is really troublesome." Su Ru stood up. "This won't do. I have to report this to Lady Xiao immediately. There are no survivors. I don't think it will spread out. The four major sects have a long history. Their secret techniques are endless. It's impossible to guard against them." Su Ru turned her slim waist and floated away. She waved her hand at him with her back facing him. Chu Li shook his head and sighed. This was really troublesome. The Tempest Temple would not sit idly by if that person had the secret manual of the sentient menace. He came to the shore and stood under the willow tree in deep thought. The moonlight reflected on the surface of the lake. The sparkling waves shone on his calm face. The Tempest Temple was not an ordinary faction. According to the books he read and the information he obtained, the public house was not as strong as the Tempest Temple. After a while, Xiao Qi and Su Ru arrived. They stood side by side at the bow of the boat. Xiao Qi's clothes were as white as snow. She looked like an otherworldly fairy. The moonlight reflected on her face. Her eyes were like stars, shining brightly. The two of them floated in front of him with a faint fragrance. "My lady," Chu Li closed fist saluted. Xiao Qi waved her hand and said, "The Tempest Temple?" Chu Li said, "Actually, that person has the secret manual of the sentient menace." Su Ru turned to look at Xiao Qi. "My lady, this is bad." Xiao Qi frowned and looked at Chu Li. "You found it?" Chu Li nodded. Su Ru was not happy at all. She stomped her feet. "This is troublesome." Xiao Qi frowned. "What do you think?" Chu said, I think I can cultivate it. Suru rolled her eyes at him. Stop dreaming. If it's that easy, the martial arts of the Tempest Temple would have been spread all over the world. Xiaoqi waved her hand. That's not necessarily true. There are many secret manuals of the Tempest Temple, but no one has been able to cultivate it. Chu frowned. It doesn't seem that difficult, does it? After reading the secret manual, he felt that it did not take much effort to cultivate it. His progress was also very fast. The more powerful the martial arts of the Tempest Temple, the more profound the dermic base is required. Without enough dermic base, it's impossible to cultivate it. Xiaoqi said, the monks of the Tempest Temple are also divided into civil and martial arts. Once you enter the temple, you must first learn dermic base for 10 years and cultivate along with the foundation. Only when you have enough dermic base can you cultivate martial arts to protect the temple and subdue demons. Without enough dermic base, you are not allowed to cultivate martial arts. So they are not afraid of martial arts being spread around. The secret manual of the sentient menace is not hard to find, but no one dares to cultivate it. Xiaoqi shook her head. That's why there is no one in the library or the martial arts hall. Why? Suru asked curiously. Xiaoqi said, once you cultivate the sentient menace, you will go astray. Some people suspected that there was a problem with the secret manual, but later it was found out that it was not the secret manual, but the dermic base. Suru asked curiously, what's going on? The martial arts of the Tempest Temple have demonic characteristics. It needs dermic base to dissipate. Without dermic base, cultivating the martial arts of the Tempest Temple is no different from suicide. Suru quickly said, Chu, don't do anything stupid. She looked at Chu Li worriedly. The sentient menace was famous, and it was the top martial arts of the Tempest Temple. It was extremely powerful, and no one could resist this temptation. Chu Li had already cultivated it. It would be difficult for him to stop. Chu Li smiled. Xiaoqi looked at him strangely. Chu Li smiled. Yes, Lady Xiao, my dermic base is not bad. Suru clapped her hands and suddenly realized. Chapter 27. Of course, she knew Chu Li's identity and background. He grew up in the Temple of Autumn and had been cultivating the Dharma since he was young. His Dharma was profound, and he was the best in the temple. Although the Tempest Temple's dermic base was profound and far superior to other temples, people like Chu Li, who had been influenced by the dermic base since he was young and had extraordinary comprehension, might not necessarily be inferior to the disciples of the Tempest Temple. Xiaoqi muttered, the Tempest Temple's martial arts relies on the dermic base to cultivate. The deeper the dermic base, the faster the cultivation will be, and the safer it will be. However, the Tempest Temple's martial arts are indeed dangerous. If you feel that you can't control your killing intent, stop immediately. Chu Li nodded and smiled. I'll be careful. I want to try it out first. There's no hurry. Xiaoqi waved her hand and said, the sentient menace is very difficult to cultivate. You don't have the foundation of the Tempest Temple's martial arts, so your progress will be very slow. Chu Li raised his eyebrows. Suru smiled and said, if you can master it, it will be amazing. Xiaoqi glanced at her. Suru quickly smiled and said, of course, it's also very troublesome. If the Tempest Temple finds out about this, they will definitely come looking for trouble. They will cripple my martial arts. Of course. Isn't that too domineering? They are so overbearing. Who would dare to oppose them? The other 3 sects are no match for them. I understand. Chu Li nodded slowly. I will use them carefully. Does the public house not have any plans to deal with them? It's not worth the effort. Su Ru waved her hand and said, "They're not in our territory anyway. Let's just let the Zhong public house have a headache." Chu Li frowned. Can the Zhong public house handle it? He did not quite believe it. The public house was definitely weak in front of the Tempest Temple. Otherwise, they would have destroyed the Tempest Temple a long time ago. No matter how strong the Zhong public house was, they would not be able to fight against them. Let's try to restrain each other. Suru looked at Shao Qi. Anyway, the Tempest Temple won't dare to turn against the High Duke's public house. There's still the Imperial Court. No matter how strong the Tempest Temple was, it was impossible for them to completely fall out with the Imperial Court. Otherwise, it would be a Pyrrhic victory, even if they could win. The other three sects would definitely not let go of the chance to kick them when they were down. Miss, what other martial arts do we have from the Tempest Temple? Chu Li, have you thought it through? Do you really want to cultivate? Xiao Qi asked. Chu Li nodded slowly. I would like to experience the intricacies of the Tempest Temple's martial arts. All right. Xiao Qi nodded. Follow me. The three of them boarded the boat and floated to the Jade Guardian Island. The Jade Guardian Island was brightly lit as if it was daytime. Under the illumination of the lights, the richly ornamented pavilions looked like immortal palaces. The three of them arrived at the stargazing tower. Shao Qi personally opened a cabinet and took out a square box. After opening it, she took out a golden booklet and handed it to Chu Li. This is the basic heart technique of the Tempest Temple. Chu Li took it. The material was neither paper nor silk, and it felt strange to the touch. The words Mahavairocana's demon, subduing scripture, were written on it. Chu Li frowned and flipped it open. It was a Buddhist scripture. This is the entry-level heart technique of the Great Lane Temple. It is also the core heart technique of the temple. It can suppress all inner demons. Shao Qi shook her head. As long as you can touch the first level, you'll be able to cultivate the Tempest Temple's martial arts. Disciples who are not initiated cannot cultivate martial arts. I see. After Chu Li flipped through it, he immediately imprinted it into the omniscient mirror and analyzed it through it. The power of Buddhist scriptures was unpredictable. Some were the profound meaning of the scripture, and once one understood its meaning, one's state of mind would be improved. Some were like mantras, and when recited, one would be connected to the Bodhisattva or Arhat and receive blessings. Some required one to visualize and cultivate and dig out one's own treasure. It's useless. Shao Qi continued. Rumor has it that the cultivation of Mahavairocana's demon, subduing scripture, requires enlightenment, and it's not spread to anyone else. That's why they are fearless and not afraid that it will be spread to outsiders. Whoever cultivates, it will die. Chu Li slowly nodded. Enlightenment could not be secretly learned. Not everyone could do it, and it would be useless if one's cultivation level was not high enough. There were probably not many people in the Tempest Temple who could do it, and they would not leave the temple. Therefore, outsiders would not be able to touch the profound meaning of the Tempest Temple's martial arts. Lady Xiao, are you trying to make me give up? Chu Li handed the booklet back. Shao Qi said, I know you're a smart person. You always want to break the rules and do what others can't. Chu Li smiled. Shao Qi said, but you still have to be careful. The sentient menace is not easy to cultivate. All right, I'll give it a try. If it doesn't work, I'll give up, Chu Li said. Shao Qi nodded. That's for the best. She did all this to convince Chu Li and dispel his desire to win. Otherwise, if he really wanted to cultivate the sentient menace, it would very likely destroy him. Any smart person would be extremely confident. No matter what Chu Li said, Chu Li would not listen. Only when he personally experienced despair would he give up. Letting him read the scripture of Mahavarokana was to plant a seed in his heart. Without the scripture of Mahavarokana, he would not be able to cultivate the sentient menace. Cultivating it was just a tentative attempt, and there was no need to force it. It would eliminate his desire to win and avoid danger. Suru, Xiaoqi said. Yes. Suru responded. She went to the cabinet and took out a small jade bottle. It was the size of a thumb, and it was crystal white. She handed the jade bottle to Chu Li. Chu Li, this is the seed of the Andromeda. See if you can grow it. Andromeda. Chu Li searched in his mind and quickly found it. He was surprised. Do you really want to grow it? Yes, I need it for cultivation, Xiaoqi said. Chu Li frowned and looked at her. Xiaoqi said, Don't worry, I know its harm. Chu Li slowly nodded. The Andromeda was extraordinarily beautiful, but it could cause people to hallucinate. If someone came in contact with its juice, they would have suicidal tendencies. Many people did not recognize it and only thought it was beautiful. They would bring it to the garden and eventually die under its flower. Suru rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. Are you really? Gather? Meow. Meow? Meow Phi model? Startled Descend Peck, Baron Duty Trade Falcon, Stand, Handsome Chu Li smiled. I'll try. Try, Suru said impatiently. This flower is very important. Chu Li looked at Xiaoqi and smiled. Yes, I will definitely grow it. That's more like it. Suru scoffed. Xiaoqi said, The heart technique I cultivate is different from the normal heart technique. I need this flower to train my mind. Chu Li nodded. Yes, Lady Xiao. Don't worry. I will grow it as soon as possible. Okay. Xiaoqi nodded. You don't have to worry about the raging tiger troop. I will take care of it. Thank you, Lady Xiao. Chu Li closed fists saluted and left. The wind from the lake at night was particularly moist. It gently lifted the hem of Suru's clothes. She stood by the shore and quietly looked at the vast lake in the distance. Chu Li, you must keep the Andromeda a secret and plan it as soon as possible. Chu Li nodded. Lady Xiao needs it that much. It is the key to cultivation. Suru turned her head and looked at him with her bright eyes. If you have the Andromeda, Lady Xiao's cultivation will improve and you will have a better life. I will try my best. Chu Li nodded. Suru tilted her head and looked at him. Aren't you curious about the heart technique that Lady Xiao is cultivating? Chu Li shook his head. I am not curious. You know your place. Suru smiled. Lady Xiao's martial arts were passed down from the madam. The madam came from Green Deer Cliff. Chu Li was surprised. He really did not know about this secret. Green Deer Cliff. Green Deer Cliff was one of the 4 major sects in the world. It was a super sect that had existed for thousands of years. It was unimaginably deep. He did not expect Lady Xiao's mother to come from Green Deer Cliff. The madam passed away early. She only left a sword scripture for Lady Xiao. It is not the martial arts of Green Deer Cliff. Suru shook her head. I don't know what the madam was thinking. She could have passed the martial arts of Green Deer Cliff to Lady Xiao. Maybe there are rules, Chu Li said. Suru rolled her eyes at him. This sword scripture was obtained by the madam by chance. No one has cultivated it before. Without the experience of predecessors, Lady Xiao explored it alone. Her progress is slow, but because it was passed down by the madam, she has to cultivate it. Lady Xiao has been an innate master for a long time. Her progress is not slow. Chu Li said. Suru scoffed. If it was not for this sword scripture, with Lady Xiao's exceptional talent, she would have become a grandmaster. Chu Li smiled. Suru rolled her eyes at him. Why? You don't believe me? I do. You don't mean it. Su Ru scoffed. Lady Xiao has an eidetic memory. She can master any martial arts with just one practice. If it was not for this sword scripture. Forget it. Chu Li raised his eyebrows and nodded. He had used the omniscient mirror on Xiao Qi. Her spiritual force was strong. Su Ru was not lying. One of the key factors to become a grandmaster was spiritual force. Only when one's spiritual force was strong enough would he be qualified to break through to the grandmaster's boundary. The heart technique that Xiao Qi cultivated was very strange. It was similar to the Buddhist's mind reading. Obviously, this sword scripture was not ordinary. The madam must have seen the beauty of it by letting Lady Xiao cultivate it. Other martial arts, even if one cultivated it to the enlightened mastery's boundary, would not be able to achieve the mind reading. A woman who could see through people's hearts had endless benefits. It was more useful than pure martial arts. It was no wonder that the madam chose it this way. Chu Li also knew that although the Andromeda was powerful, it also had its advantages. It could enhance one's spiritual force. He thought it was lost, but he did not expect to see it again. Are you really going to build a restaurant? Yes. I will hire 2 chefs first. Then I will build a shop. Let's try it out first. If it is really good, it won't be too late to build a restaurant. Thank you, Chief. Consider the money for the shop as your reward. I have money here. You should keep that money for yourself. It's settled. Then I will have to trouble Chief to spend. I won't be spending Lady Xiao's money anyway. Don't worry. Su Ru smiled and patted his shoulder. The deity's beard was not cheap, and the military was not short of money. This time, not only would she not lose money, she would also earn a lot. After Chu Li returned to the East Garden, he did not rest. He immediately began to plant the Andromeda. The seeds of the Andromeda were hard to find, and it was not easy to grow. However, he understood that the most important thing was to keep it a secret. So, he opened a separate flower garden in an inconspicuous place where outsiders would not come. The Andromeda grew slowly. Chu Li moved the spiritual force of other flowers over to help it grow. Under the accelerated growth, it only took 10 days to grow a flower. The small yellow flower was dazzling and flawless. It made people want to hold it in their hands. In the middle of the night, Xiao Qi and Su Ru arrived. Li Yu had already returned to his room to sleep. Chu Li had been staying in the Moonlight Orchid parterre for the past 10 days, taking care of the Moonlight Orchid and the Nightmare Flower. Li Yu was not surprised. With Chu Li guarding him, he could sleep peacefully. Xiao Qi and Su Ru silently came over. Xiao Qi was dressed in white, while Su Ru was still in her apricot gown. The two of them stood beside Chu Li in front of the Andromeda, looking at the 5 bright yellow flowers. Who would have thought that such beautiful flowers would have the name Andromeda? Lady Xiao, how is it? Chu Li turned and asked. Xiao Qi nodded. It's the Andromeda. How did you do it? Chu Li smiled without saying a word. Su Ru rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. So mysterious. No one found out, right? Of course. Chu Li nodded. Su Ru scoffed. At least you understand. Lady Xiao, should we pluck them? Yes. Xiao Qi nodded. She was cold and calm as usual. It was as if nothing in the world could make her lose her composure. She was as calm as the water in an ancient well. Chu Li knew that this was because of her temperament and the sword scripture. The sword scripture would probably suppress her emotions and keep her calm. Su Ru took the jade box and kept the 5 yellow flowers. She looked at Chu Li. Don't let them bloom yet. Let's wait and see if Lady Xiao still needs them. Chu Li nodded. Xiao Qi said, Chu Li, you have to think about the spirit field. Chu Li quickly said, Lady Xiao, I've thought about it. The spirit field should be built on the Jade Guardian Island. Xiao Qi looked at him quietly with her bright eyes. It's too obvious, and there's not enough protection. The spirit field was a huge piece of meat. No one could resist it. If the protection was not enough, there would be people who would take the risk. At that time, the East Garden would become a dangerous place. She would be fine, but Li Yu would be in danger. Chapter 28. Xiao Qi looked at him and said, You've cultivated the sentient menace, haven't you? Chu Li nodded. I've tried. How's it going? It's all right. Chu Li had been cultivating for 10 days. The sentient menace was indeed powerful. It formed a strange vital energy that did not circulate in the meridians, but instead accumulated in the muscles and bones. When he cultivated the sentient menace, the vital energy in his muscles would circulate and form a layer of invisible membrane that was extremely tough. The sentient menace had 6 stages: skin, flesh, tendons, meridians, bones, and marrow. Chu Li was currently at the first stage. His skin was covered with a layer of gas that was as tough as crocodile skin. It could deflect attacks, and normal swords would not be able to break it. No backlash. Xiao Qi stared at him. Chu Li said, It's a little inappropriate. After cultivating the sentient menace, his heart would occasionally surge with restlessness. In this state, everything he saw was an eyesore, and he had the urge to destroy everything. Killing people was the most satisfying thing to do. Fortunately, he was well versed in Buddhism. When the killing intent rose, he would silently chant the Buddhist scriptures to suppress it. If he really could not control it, he would use the omniscient mirror. If he did not have the omniscient mirror, he would not dare to cultivate it. Without the omniscient mirror, he would definitely become a murderous demon if he continued to cultivate. He had a feeling that the leader of the Raging Tiger Troop had become like that because he was cultivating the sentient menace. If it's really inappropriate, then stop. I'll be careful. If it really doesn't work, then stop. You know what you're doing. Xiao Qi gave him a warning look. Chu Li quickly nodded. Let's go. Su Ru waved her hand. The two of them fluttered away, bringing with them a faint fragrance. Chu Li let out a sigh of relief. Looking at their beautiful backs, he felt melancholy. If such beauties did not belong to him, how unfortunate would his life be? The next morning, he woke up to start cultivating the delusion split. Li Yu was already practicing his fist technique. The courtyard was bustling with noise. Suddenly, the sound of a jade chime could be heard. Li Yu stopped. I'll go take a look. Chu Li's sword force was endless. He nodded and continued to swing his sword weakly. Li Yu took big strides as he ran out. After a while, a loud laugh could be heard. Brother, look who's here. Chu Li's omniscient mirror had already seen Zhao Ying. Her lake green gown fluttered in the wind. She had a graceful figure and a face as white as jade. She gracefully stepped into the courtyard and pursed her lips into a smile. Senior Marshal Brother Chu, Junior Sister, Chu Li did not stop his attack. He smiled and said, Come, let's learn from each other. Sure. Zhao Ying unsheathed her sword and gracefully leaped in front of him. She thrust her sword forward gracefully, like a swallow flying across the surface of a lake. Li Yu gasped in admiration, his eyes wide and unblinking. Chu Li's sword was still moving at a leisurely pace. He pointed to the left and pointed to the right. Zhao Ying kept changing her moves. Her elegant sword force became fragmented. After more than 20 moves, she retreated and glared at him. Brother, you've gone too far. Chu Li sheathed his sword and shook his head. Your swordsmanship hasn't improved much. I've been practicing. Zhao Ying sheathed her sword and said with a smile, Senior, I'm already a rank 7 protector. You didn't attempt rank 6. I'll try rank 6 when I'm an innate master. That's true. Rank 7 protector. Liu asked in shock. Zhao Ying turned her head and smiled. Senior martial brother, Li, don't I look like one? Wow, Zhuo Feiyang is only rank 7. Liu exclaimed. Another genius. You two entered the public house together, right? Yes. Zhao Ying nodded. I'm with Senior Martial Brother Chu and Senior Martial Brother Zhua. Rank 7. Huh. Liu shook his head and sighed. They really don't let others live. Zhao Ying smiled. If Senior Martial Brother Chu were to attempt it, he would definitely be able to pass rank 6. Liu looked at Chu Li and laughed. His swordsmanship is amazing, but he's afraid of hidden weapons. What a pity. Chu Li said, let's go to the garden and admire the flowers. All right. Zhao Ying clapped her hands. Liu quickly asked, Zhao Ying, you haven't had breakfast, right? Nope. Great, let's eat together. What do you want to eat? I'm fine. I'll eat whatever you guys eat. Leave it to me. Chu Li and Zhao Ying left the courtyard and strolled along the flower bed on the island. Senior Martial Brother, does Lady Xiao know about the Raging Tiger Troop? Yes, the chief will help. That's good. Zhao Ying let out a sigh of relief and shook her head. I've asked around. It's very difficult to open a restaurant. You need to build a tall building first. There are 4 restaurants in the town. 3 of them belong to the governor's public house, and one of them has a powerful background. To compete with them, it's going to be very difficult. Chu Li nodded. Zhao Ying said, it takes at least a year to build a tall building. It's very costly. Once the building is built, we'll need a good chef. All the good chefs in Chongming Town are taken. We can't just take them away from the public house, right? The chief will hire a chef from the fairy's capital. As for the building, there's no rush. We'll take it slow. We'll first buy a shop and open a pub to practice. That's great. The two walked side by side, their shoulders touching from time to time. Chu Li said, Sister, you're almost perfecting the acquired level, right? Yes, I'll be there in half a month. Zhao Ying said, Brother, I realized that cultivating in the public house is not as fast as cultivating in the ravine. It's quiet there. The environment is good too. It's too bad we can't go back to cultivate. It'd be great if we could isolate ourselves there. It's better not to go. Oh, right, I want to go back to the Raging Tiger Troop to see if anyone would come looking for them. They don't even have the power to protect themselves. I'm worried. Let's go check it out in a few days. Zhao Ying smiled. That's settled then. I'll go back and isolate myself to cultivate. Once I've perfected the acquired level, we'll leave. Chu Li smiled and nodded. The two of them walked around the small island. Zhao Ying's horizons were broadened, and she clicked her tongue in admiration. Every single flower here was so beautiful that it was simply irresistible. Liu shouted from afar, It's time to eat. The two returned to the courtyard. The stone table was already filled with dishes. The aroma of food filled their noses. Zhao Ying smiled and thanked them. Liu puffed out his chest and proudly introduced the dishes to them. They sat down and started eating. Just as they were enjoying their meal, the sound of a jade chime could be heard. Liu put down his bowl and chopsticks and said helplessly, I'll go take a look. Chu Li frowned. It was Zhuo Feiyang. Liu quickly brought Zhuo Feiyang back to the courtyard. Zhuo Feiyang was dressed in a sapphire blue gown. His face was like jade, and his eyes were like stars. As soon as he entered the courtyard, his face darkened. He looked at Zhao Ying angrily, and then at Chu Li. He laughed coldly. The two of them were eating together. They looked like a couple. Brother Shua. Zhaoying quickly stood up. Why are you here? Did I come at the wrong time? Shua Feiyang's face was cold. I'm sorry to have disturbed you. Shuli put down his bowl. Shua Feiyang, what a rare guest. Shua Feiyang waved his hand. If it weren't for Zhao Ying, I wouldn't have entered your doghouse. You're not welcome here. Shuli said coldly. Please, Zhao Ying, why are you eating with this guy? Shua Feiyang did not look at Shuli. He turned to Zhao Ying and said seriously, it's better to stay away from people like him. Let's go. Brother Zhua. Zhao Ying frowned and said, unhappily, don't be like this. Shua Feiyang said, I haven't had breakfast either. Let's go to the Sky Inn. I'm almost full. Zhao Ying said, you should try it too. Brother Li's cooking is amazing. All he can do is cook. All he does is run around the kitchen and do things that women do. Shua Feiyang curled his lips and looked at Li Yu with disdain. Useless. Li Yu gritted his teeth and clenched his fist. In the end, he did not throw a punch. He had no chance of winning against a genius like Shua Feiyang. Brother Li, don't listen to his barking. Shuli patted Li Yu's shoulder and turned his head. Shua Feiyang, you're really arrogant. You're in our territory, and you still dare to be so presumptuous. Brother, Zhao Ying quickly waved her hand. Forget it. I'll leave first. All right, then I won't keep you. Chu Li looked at her and shook his head. Zhao Ying knew Chu Li's martial arts. If he really did beat Shua Feiyang into a cripple, Shua Feiyang would not care. After all, this was the East Garden. Trespassing without permission was a serious crime. No one would say anything even if he killed him. Although Shua Feiyang had crossed the line, he would not feel good if he was beaten into a cripple. Shua Feiyang laughed coldly. What can you do to me? Chu Li chuckled. Zhao Ying quickly pulled Shua Feiyang up. Brother Shua, let's go. Shua Feiyang tried to break free, but found that he could not. He was dragged out of the courtyard and soon reached the shore. Bai Jijia was waiting on the boat. When he saw them, Bai Jijia let out a sigh of relief. He quickly moved the boat closer and let the two of them board. Shua Feiyang stood at the bow of the boat and looked at Zhao Ying with surprise. Sister Zhao, when did your inner energy become so strong? It's even stronger than mine. Zhao Ying smiled. Of course not. Sister Zhao, ever since you came back from the mission, you've changed. Shua Feiyang shook his head and sighed. Zhao Ying smiled awkwardly and did not reply. Shua Feiyang asked sincerely, Sister, did I do something wrong that made you angry? No. Zhao Ying shook her head. Then why? Shua Feiyang stared at her beautiful face. Why are you so cold? Brother Zhua, I've always been like this. You're overthinking it. Zhao Ying shook her head and avoided his gaze. Shua Feiyang stared at her. Sister Zhao, who did you do the mission with? It's a top-secret mission. I can't tell you. Brother Zhua, you know the rules. Zhao Ying shook her head. Shua Feiyang furrowed his brows. You like someone else, don't you? Brother Zhua, what are you talking about? Zhao Ying quickly waved her hand and said angrily, I don't like anyone. Also, Brother Zhua, please don't misunderstand. We're just friends, not that kind of relationship. You. Shua Feiyang's face turned red. He was furious. Zhao Ying said, because we're classmates, we're closer. But it's not what you think. Brother Zhua, please don't misunderstand. You like someone else. Shua Feiyang said coldly. Zhao Ying shook her head and sighed. There was no way he could explain it. She could only avoid his gaze and look into the distance. Shua Feiyang furrowed his brows in deep thought. He planned to find out who she was doing the mission with. If he could not find out about the top-secret mission, he could look into other aspects. For example, who was out during this period of time? He could then use the elimination method to search for clues. All right, then why did you go to that trash's place? Shuo Feiyang took a deep breath and scoffed. He's full of evil ideas. Sister Zhao, you're too naive. Don't be fooled by him. Brother Shuo, Brother Chu isn't that bad. If he isn't bad, then who is? Shuo Feiyang laughed coldly. But it doesn't matter. So what if he's bad? He's just a piece of trash. There's no need to take him seriously. Zhao Ying used to think that when he called Chu Li a piece of trash, it was not a nice thing to hear. She did not think much of it. But now it was so harsh. She wanted to cover his mouth. Brother Zhuo, Brother Chu isn't that weak. It's just that his swordsmanship is slightly better. That won't change the fact that he's a piece of trash. When I become an innate master, I'll beat the crap out of him. I'll definitely cripple him. Brother Chu is now a rank 6 scribe. Zhao Ying scoffed. Rank 6? Shuo Feiyang was stunned. His expression suddenly changed. He's rank 6? You can go and check. Impossible. Shuo Feiyang furrowed his brows and shook his head. How is that possible? Rank 6 was an insurmountable barrier, especially for a scribe. Chu Li was so young. How could he become a rank 6? Brother Chu, do you remember the bet? Zhao Ying suddenly felt an inexplicable thrill of revenge. She smiled. Rank 6. You're rank 7 now. I'll go and challenge rank 6. Shuo Feiyang scoffed. Zhao Ying shook her head. Without becoming an innate master, there's no hope for rank 6. I can do it, Shuo Feiyang said angrily. Zhao Ying smiled, but did not say anything. Chapter 29. The sky was not bright yet. The moonlight was like water shining on the porch window. The house was also dimly lit. Chu Li slowly practiced the sentient menace in the west room. He did the 36 postures in sequence. His mind was calm, without any form or ego. Only when his mind was in this state would his movements be effective. If his mind was not calm, no matter how he practiced, it would be useless. He did not cultivate the sentient menace. After the 36 postures, a strange force flowed along with his movements. His skin was washed once, and finally the force entered his skin and merged with it. Through the omniscient mirror, he saw that his skin was slightly changed by the force. It became tighter and more elastic. He felt like he had infinite strength, as if he could break the sky with one punch. He knew that it was an illusion, but the sentient menace did increase his strength. He had practiced it for about 10 days, and his strength had increased by half. It was shocking. He did not know what other miraculous things would happen in the future. While he was practicing, a faint golden light flowed on his skin. It was no different from the leader of the raging tiger troop. Chu Li could tell that this guy had only scratched the surface of the sentient menace. The sentient menace was like casting pearls before swine. If he cultivated it, well, Chu Li would not be able to do anything to him. With a huge increase in strength, his speed would naturally increase as well. Especially the explosive force, it was impossible to defend against. The leader of the raging tiger troop could not defeat him, which was a disgrace to the sentient menace. Thinking about this, Chu Li was even more afraid of the Tempest Temple. With such a divine technique, he did not know how powerful it would be. With such a martial art, how scary would the Tempest Temple be? He was also secretly happy. The most important aspect of the sentient menace was the meditation technique. The deeper the meditation, the faster the strange force flowed. If the mind was shallow, the inner energy would be intermittent, and it would be almost impossible to cultivate. He had the omniscient mirror, and his meditation technique was very deep. Cultivating the technique was very smooth. He practiced from morning to night, and after eating, He immediately returned to the house to continue. He did not let Liu see him in case he wanted to practice it secretly and cause endless harm. The light in the house was dim, and it was filled with a rose color. Just as he was about to leave the house, footsteps came from outside, accompanied by a faint fragrance. Su stood at his window and looked in. "Chu Li, come, accompany me to the town." "Yes." Chu Li walked out of the west room. Both of them exited from the south gate of the mansion and went straight into Chongming town. As the sun set, the entire Chongming town was dyed a rosy color. Smoke rose from the chimneys, and the smell of burning firewood filled the air. It added a sense of life to the town. Chu Li could vividly feel the reality of this world. He was truly alive, and it was not just a dream. Suru was dressed in an apricot gown, strolling leisurely on the streets. "Let's see which shop is suitable. I'll choose today." Chu Li raised his eyebrows. They were going to choose a shop for the restaurant today. The two of them walked around Chongming town. Chu Li marked two shops that were not close to the street. They were on the other side of the main street and were deserted. He felt that this place was suitable. On one hand, it was quiet, and on the other hand, good wine needed no privacy. In this day and age, as long as the food was well cooked, there was no need to worry that no one would come to eat. After choosing the shop, night had fallen, and the stars were twinkling in the sky. The two of them arrived at Sky Inn, the best restaurant in Chongming town. When the waiter downstairs saw Suru, he hurriedly came over and said, "Chief Steward Su, this lowly one greets you." "Chief Steward, please." Suru waved her hand and said, "Just give us a table on the second floor." "Yes, this lowly one will lead the way." The quick-witted waiter quickly nodded and brought the two of them to a table on the second floor. He looked at the few seats near the window and said in a low voice, "Chief, do you need me to free up 2 good seats for you?" "No need, this is it," Suru said. Their seats were quite far away from the window. The surrounding seats were filled with people, and it was a little noisy. Suru sat down without a change in expression. "Let's follow the old rules. Give him a jar of good wine and 6 signature dishes. Hurry up." "Yes, it's coming." The waiter quickly nodded. Chu Li glanced at it and frowned. What a coincidence. The person at the opposite table looked up and his face darkened. He then saw Suru and quickly stood up. "Zhuo Feiyang greets Chief Steward Su." Bai Jijia, who was beside him, also gave a fist salute and bowed. Suru waved her hand and said, "No need to be so polite. We're all here to eat. Eat your food." "Yes." The two of them retreated and returned to their seats to continue eating. Suru looked at Chu Li and pursed her lips into a smile. Enemies always meet. What a coincidence, isn't it? He always comes here to eat. It's normal to bump into him, Chu Li said. Zhuo Feiyang liked to enjoy life and was very good to himself. A protector's salary was generous, so he was not short of money. Moreover, his family was very well off, so he almost came to the Sky Inn for 3 meals a day. The Sky Inn was the best restaurant in the Chongming town. It was very expensive, so most people could not afford it. Suru shook her head and smiled. "Do you really want him to be a protector? No need." Chu Li shook his head. "He wants to kill me. Asking him to be a protector is like inviting a wolf into the house." "You finally understand." Suru nodded. "You can't be careless when it comes to protectors. Sometimes you can lose your life if you're not careful." "Oh, right. How's the progress with Zhaoying?" "It's all right. You didn't even grab such a good opportunity." Suru pursed her lips into a smile. "You've been alone for a month. A man and a woman alone together. Nothing happened." "No." Chu Li shook his head. Suru rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. "Useless." Chu Li smiled bitterly. "Chief, Sister Zhaoing isn't that kind of person. Don't scare her. You. Suru shook her head and sighed. You're too honest. You look like a smart person. How can you be so honest? Chu Li smiled embarrassedly. I've never interacted with a woman before. You get along well with us. Suru smiled. You're the first one who behaves so naturally in front of Lady Xiao. You don't lose your composure. Lady Xiao's face was stunning and beautiful. Her beauty was like a physical force. Men were naturally powerless against this kind of power. They would all be affected. No man would not lose his composure in front of Lady Xiao. Chu Li shook his head. I can let go of Lady Xiao and Chief because I know myself. I won't have any improper thoughts. But it's different for her. I see. Suru nodded. Zhao Ying won't look down on you, right? Of course not. Chu Li shook his head. Sigh, next time. I'll try to let you two be together again when there's a mission. Suru smiled. The two of them were sitting next to Zhuo Feiyang. Although it was noisy, he could still hear their conversation. Chapter 30. Crack. The chopsticks in Zhuo Feiyang's hand broke into two. Bai Jijie was shocked and whispered, Master! Zhuo Feiyang's face darkened. He nodded and said, Let's go back. Master, are you full? Bai Jijie asked. He did not even touch the dishes on the table. It was a pity that the dishes were not cheap. Zhuo Feiyang stood up and came to Suru's side. He closed fists saluted and left. Suru waved her hand and gestured for them to leave. Zhuo Feiyang glared at Chu Li and left in big strides. Suru smiled as she watched Zhuo Feiyang and Bai Jijie leave. Chu Li sighed. Chief, you just want to see the world in chaos. Suru smiled. This is more interesting. Chu Li, if you still can't beat Zhuo Feiyang, then I'll really call you useless. Chief, things between men and women are not like other things. It's not that simple. You're overthinking it. All right, stop it. Get together? Stop it. Play tricks? Of course, Zhuo Feiyang is not a good partner. I won't let Zhao Ying jump into the fire pit. Zhuo Feiyang is arrogant and selfish. He only has himself in his eyes. He only has a good appearance. Whoever follows him will be unlucky. I'll buy these two shops tomorrow and start immediately. Thank you, Chief. Take care of this and prepare for the spirit field as soon as possible. This is a big deal. Okay. 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. It was noon and the sun was shining brightly. The town was much quieter. The scorching sun made people want to stay in the shade. Chu Li asked Zhao Ying to check out the two shops. Both of them had inner energy to protect them, so they were not afraid of the heat. The two shops had been connected, and the internal structure had been changed into a pub. They went in and looked around. Zhao Ying was very satisfied. It was big and spacious. After taking a look around, the two of them walked back, leisurely chatting as they strolled. They walked into a narrow alley and turned a corner. They saw a man in a green shirt standing in the middle of the bluestone path. His back was facing them, and he had a slender figure. Chu Li knew it was Zhuo Feiyang at first glance. Zhao Ying recognized him as well and frowned. For the past few days, Zhuo Feiyang had been pestering her. She had gone into seclusion and refused to see him, so she had been avoiding him. She did not expect him to follow her all the way here. Chu Li did not stop, so Zhao Ying had no choice but to follow. When they got closer, Zhuo Feiyang slowly turned around and glared at Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying was helpless. Senior brother, Zhuo. Sister Zhao, you're in such a good mood. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Aren't you in isolation? I came out for some business. Senior brother, Zhuo, were you waiting for me here? I wasn't waiting for you. Zhuo Feiyang turned and glared at Chu Li. I was waiting for you. Chu Li? Chu Li asked. Zhuo Feiyang, what is it? Surname Chu, you are a despicable person. Zhuo Feiyang pointed at him and scolded, you used Chief Su to transfer junior sister Zhao to be your protector. You're such a despicable person. Chu Li snapped, you're being unreasonable. You know you broke the rules, right? He was carrying out a top-secret mission. The so-called top-secret mission meant that the person executing the mission had to keep it a secret. It could not be leaked, and the other guards could not ask about it either. Zhuo Feiyang's actions were against the rules. If he pursued the matter, his punishment would not be light. Surname Chu, don't think that just because you're related to Chief Su, you're someone important. Zhuo Feiyang, that's enough. Tell me, what do you want? Humph. Zhuo Feiyang put down his finger and pouted. I'll deal with you sooner or later. Junior sister Zhao, let's go back. Senior brother Zhuo, what's the matter? Chu Li frowned. Zhuo Feiyang, I have serious business with junior sister Zhao. Don't cause trouble. Serious business? Humph, you're just using it to get close to junior sister Zhao. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. You think I don't know what you're thinking? Chu Li sighed. All right, junior sister Zhao is gentle and kind. Which man wouldn't like her? I'm the same. What? You're the only one allowed to pursue junior sister Zhao, but I'm not allowed. You're useless. You don't have the right. You can't even defeat a useless person like me. You don't have the right. I'll defeat you one day. Who can say for sure? You think you can become a master just because you're talented? You're too naive. There are plenty of talented people out there, but how many of them actually become masters? Zhuo Feiyang, an arrogant idiot like you will die sooner or later. For junior sister Zhao's sake, you should stay away from her. Zhuo Feiyang's eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. He gritted his teeth and laughed coldly. Junior sister Zhao won't have a good life if she stays with a useless piece of trash like you. I'm rank 6. I can take care of junior sister Zhao and give her a stable life. Can you? As a protector, you're always worried about your life. You don't even know if there'll be a tomorrow after today. Who knows if you'll lose your life in a mission tomorrow? You're letting junior sister Zhao live in fear every day. Zhuo Feiyang was angry and frustrated. He should not have argued with Chu Li. He should not have used his weakness to attack Chu Li's strength. He scoffed. I'll soon become an innate master. When that time comes, Chu Li waved his hand. Then wait until you become an innate master. Everyone knows how to brag. It's not easy to become an innate master. Goodbye. He tugged at Zhao Ying's sleeve and walked away. Zhao Ying looked at Zhuo Feiyang and then at him. She was in a difficult position. She did not want to be so heartless. She stomped her feet and shook off Chu Li's hand. I'm leaving first. She twisted her waist, turned around, and ran away. Chu Li stood where he was and shook his head. She was really kind. Even at this point, she could not bear to hurt Zhuo Feiyang. Zhuo Feiyang looked at her graceful figure and let out a sigh of relief. His face darkened. Chu Li, stay away from junior sister Zhao. Chu Li scoffed. Stay away from her. Oh, right, you're no longer a match for junior sister Zhao. Do you know that? What a joke. Zhuo Feiyang laughed coldly. Chu Li shook his head and said, You're still daydreaming all day long, thinking that you're a master. How pitiful. Zhuo Feiyang, why don't you compete with Sister Zhao Ying? When that time comes, you'll know how ridiculous you are. I will, Zhuo Feiyang said coldly. Chu Li walked forward and got closer to him. If you can't beat junior sister Zhao, then you should just slit your own throat. It's too embarrassing. It's none of your business. Zhuo Feiyang scoffed. How pitiful. Chu Li shook his head and walked past him. The veins on Zhuo Feiyang's hands bulged like earthworms, but he held himself back. He would deal with him when he became an innate master. Revenge was a dish best served cold. Chu Li's steps were light as he walked along the green stone path and passed through the alleyway. He smiled. He could foresee what Shuo Feiyang would do. He would spar with Zhao Ying and realize that he was no match for her. Then he would isolate himself and train hard. That way, he could have some peace and quiet. Shuo Feiyang was a proud and arrogant chauvinist. If he could not match up to Zhao Ying, then he would never pursue her. He would only pursue her if he could defeat her. By then, Zhao Ying's heart would already belong to him. Chu Li's footsteps became lighter as he thought about this. Chapter 31. Shuo Feiyang's face was gloomy as he walked. Chu Li's words echoed in his mind. He recalled Zhao Ying's actions when they first met. His face grew darker, and he started to panic. Was he going to lose Zhao Ying? He could not help but recall the first time he met Zhao Ying. The second day he entered the public house, he went to the lecture hall to report. According to the rules of the school, when he entered the lecture hall, he saw Zhao Ying among the 20 people. His eyes brightened, and his heart started to race. The world suddenly became a better place. With that one look, he was certain that she was his woman. Zhao Ying was quiet in the lecture hall. She rarely spoke. She was a quiet and gentle woman, but as the only woman in the hall, everyone was paying attention to her. He shook his head. Chu Li, this useless piece of trash, also liked Zhao Ying. It was like a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. He thought it was ridiculous, but he did not let his guard down. This guy could not practice martial arts, but he was very smart. Zhao Ying was gentle, kind, and pure. What if she really fell for his flowery words? That was why he tried to attack Chu Li whenever he had the chance. But reality was cruel. Every time he attacked Chu Li, he would be rebuffed. Not once did it go smoothly. Instead, he embarrassed himself. He could only watch as Zhao Ying got closer to Chu Li, this useless piece of trash, and he could not do anything about it. It was a terrible feeling. Could Chu Li really succeed? Was he really going to steal Zhao Ying's heart? He returned to his courtyard with a heavy heart. He tossed and turned all night and did not sleep well. The next morning, he arrived at the training field of the martial arts hall early in the morning. He saw Zhao Ying practicing her swordsmanship. The morning sun was bright and beautiful. It was neither hot nor cold. Zhao Ying was dressed in a light green gown. She looked graceful and valiant. Under the sunlight, it was as if her whole body was glowing. It was a fatal attraction. There were many people practicing around her. Shuo Feiyang looked around coldly and said, "Zhao Ying." Zhao Ying did not stop practicing. She said casually, "Brother Shuo, you're here." Shuo Feiyang unsheathed his sword. "Sister Zhao Ying, let's spar." Zhao Ying hesitated and sheathed her sword. Spar. If this was before, she would have agreed without hesitation. But now, her swordsmanship was so strong that Shuo Feiyang might not be her match. Shuo Feiyang nodded. "My delusion split has made some progress recently. Let's spar. Watch my sword." As soon as he said that, he thrust his sword towards Zhao Ying. Zhao Ying had no choice but to draw her sword out. She drew a small arc in the air and parried Shuo Feiyang's sword. In the beginning, Shuo Feiyang was skeptical. He held back when he attacked, afraid that he would hurt her. But after a while, he saw that she was able to handle his attacks with ease. Her swordsmanship had improved tremendously, so he gradually increased his strength. In the end, he exerted all his skills and displayed the delusion-splitting sword art to the extreme, but he still couldn't do anything to Zhao Ying. She seemed to have held back to save him some face. This caused his face to darken unconsciously, and the momentum of his sword became even fiercer. Zhao Ying sensed that something was wrong, but she did not think too much about it. The flying swallow sword technique was light and graceful, and it was easy for her to deal with it. She felt more comfortable than before. Very soon, the two of them had exchanged over 100 blows. Zhuo Feiyang's sword aura was getting sharper and sharper, and he was getting more and more furious. He secretly activated his newly learned secret skill to stimulate his potential. His face turned red as if he was drunk, and his eyes were bloodshot. The gleam of his sword seemed to increase as well, and it was cold. He had not broken through to the innate mastery level, so his inner energy could not break out of his body. However, this kind of swordsmanship was rare in the martial arts field, so everyone stopped to watch. Zhao Ying's flying swallow sword technique was getting better and better. Against the fierce attacks, her movements became lighter and lighter. She was immersed in it, and a smile appeared on her face. When she sparred with Chu Li, he would often make her drop her sword within 2 moves. It was difficult for her to perform the flying swallow sword technique smoothly. When she fought with the masters of the Raging Tiger Troop, her heart was filled with murderous intent, so she could not relax and relax. The more relaxed the flying swallow sword technique was, the more powerful it was. It flashed brightly, and the power of the technique was shocking. Ding! Zhuo Feiyang froze. His sword suddenly flew out of his hand and fell to the ground with a clang. He turned around and walked away. His face was so dark that it could drip water. Zhao Ying then realized that something was wrong. She quickly called out, "Brother Zhuo." Zhuo Feiyang walked away as if he did not hear her and quickly jumped onto the boat. Bai Jijie was on standby on the boat. When he heard Zhuo Feiyang's cold order, he could only smile helplessly at Zhao Ying and paddle away. Zhao Ying stood on the shore and looked at Zhuo Feiyang's back, helplessly. She sighed. Zhuo Feiyang was too narrow-minded. He lost to her and became angry. Could it be that what Chu Li said was true, that he looked down on women and could not stand a woman being stronger than him? When they were sparring, it was the same situation. He purposely let her win to make her happy. He did not feel embarrassed when he lost, so why couldn't he stand it now? She shook her head helplessly and turned around to continue her practice. The flying swallow sword technique was indeed exquisite. She was far from mastering it. In the following days, she isolated herself to train her inner energy. Occasionally, she would come to the martial arts field to practice her swordsmanship and adjust her mood. When she was in a good mood, she could cultivate her inner energy faster. Zhuo Feiyang did not appear. He isolated himself. On the 10th day, Zhao Ying broke through the 36th acupuncture point and completed her acquired mastery. She went to look for Chu Li and prepared to go to the Raging Tiger Troop together. When she arrived at the East Garden, she knocked on the jade chime, but no one appeared. She could only leave in disappointment. They must have gone to the town to play. Chu Li stayed in the East Garden and did not socialize much. He did not interact much with his classmates either, because everyone looked down on him and laughed at him. When she thought of this, she felt a little pity for Chu Li. Senior brother Chu Li had suffered too much coldness and disdain. He had suffered too much. Chu Li and Li Yu were following a middleman around the town. They turned on both sides of the main street and finally arrived at a mansion near the river. The river flowed across Chongming town and was about 10 feet wide. The water was clear, and there were a few rows of willow trees by the river. The willow branches swayed in the wind like mist. Young masters, this is a 5-section mansion. It was originally owned by a wealthy merchant. Later on, this man met with disaster at sea. His family broke up, and the mansion is being sold. The middleman was a middle-aged man with an honest face. He shook his head helplessly. The world is unpredictable. It's like a dream or a dew. There's nothing we can do about it. Sigh, because the owner died. Everyone thinks that there's something wrong with the feng shui of this mansion. Not many people want to buy it, so the price is not high. In today's world, martial arts were flourishing. Buddhism was also prevalent, suppressing Taoism. There were many believers of Buddhism. Chu nodded. This mansion was huge. Those who could afford it were not lacking in money. These people were usually very particular about this. No matter how much money they had, they could not win against the heavens. They were very respectful of fate. A mansion was related to its feng shui and luck. It was better to believe in it than not. Moreover, there were many mansions in the town. There was no need to buy this one. Tell me, how much? Li Yu asked. Hee, I'll sell it for 10,000 taels. Chapter 32. Young masters with this location and such a big house, 10,000 taels is really cheap. You can ask around for the value of the houses around here. If it's too expensive, I'll twist my head off. You bastard, why would we want your head? Li Yu glared at him. 10,000 taels, that's it then. Chu patted Li Yu's shoulder. He used the omniscient mirror to look around and was very satisfied with the layout of the house. The front hall, main courtyard, backyard, garden, everything was prepared. It was more than enough to house 100 people. Brother, isn't this a little too hasty? Li Yu's eyes widened. We haven't even looked inside yet. There's no need to look. Go get the contract. Chu smiled at the broker. It's best not to leave any loose ends. We usually stay in the public house and don't have much time. We don't want any trouble. Of course, of course. The middle-aged man nodded and smiled. He was shocked and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He had almost gotten into trouble. Can we move in today? The middle-aged man nodded and smiled. Of course, but it's been a while since we've lived here. It's best to clean it up. Yes, I know. Thank you. It's me who should thank you. I'll get it done right away. It'll be done in no time. Chu nodded. Send it to the public house after it's done. Tell them you're looking for Chu in the East Garden. Understood. As they walked back, Li Yu whispered to Chu, Brother, you bought such a big house. It's better to keep a low profile. Why send him to the public house? Chu, Li shook his head. There's nothing I can't say to others. It's nothing. There's nothing wrong with being honest, but it depends on the situation. Now that you've ascended to rank 6, many people are jealous of you. They can't wait for you to make a mistake and drop your rank. What's wrong with that? People will ask, where did you get so much money? Rewards from the public house. People will ask, what did you do to earn so much money? Then it's not up to them. Anyway, it's too obvious. Don't worry, it'll be fine. I've already told Chief Su about it. Chief Su knows. Yes, that's good, that's good. Li, you let out a sigh of relief. Just as the two of them returned to the public house, they coincidentally met the graceful Zhao Ying at the south gate. When Zhao Ying saw them, she quickly flew over like a swallow. Senior brother, she revealed a smile. Senior brother Li. Chu looked at her and smiled. Congratulations, junior sister. Zhao Ying smiled sweetly and said, Not bad, not bad. Let's set off as soon as possible. Yes, I'll leave today. Chu nodded. Li Yu hurriedly asked for more details. Chu had not told him about the raging tiger troop. Chu said that he would talk about it when he got back. He and Zhao Ying went their separate ways to look for their horses. They met up at the south gate and rode their horses through Chongming town. Once they were out of the south gate, they galloped away. Because of the delay, it was already noon and the sun was high up in the sky. The two of them had inner energy to protect their bodies, so they did not feel too hot. The two horses had just started galloping and were full of energy. Senior brother, Will they come when the tavern is finished? Let them choose. If they want to live a peaceful life, they can stay. If they want to be lively, they can come. I don't think the Raging Tiger Bastion is safe. Yes, I've already bought a house. This time, I'll bring them over. Senior brother, you're so thoughtful. I hope everything goes well. As a person who had lived 2 lives, he understood that there were many things in this world that did not go according to one's will. Not everything could be done just because one wanted to. I've always been worried that someone would find out about the place. I can't even cultivate in peace. You've improved quite fast. Senior brother, why can't you tell that I know martial arts? She was curious about this. He had obviously reached the innate mastery's boundary, but he looked like he had never practiced martial arts. He did not have the aura and appearance of a martial arts master. Chu Li did not look like a martial arts practitioner. His eyes were not sharp, and there was nothing strange about his temples. He looked like an ordinary person. It was very deceptive. If he said that he did not know martial arts, only those who knew him would believe him. Maybe it's because of the mortal transformation fruit. Chu Li smiled. Usually, he only left a trace of inner energy in his dantian. It was a tiny bit to deal with sudden changes. All of his inner energy was hidden in the ground. With a single thought, his inner energy would surge. There was no surge of inner energy. Of course, there were no abnormalities. Outsiders would not be able to tell that he practiced martial arts. What a mortal transformation fruit! Zhaoing exclaimed. Also, if you have such martial arts, why don't you challenge the ranking tower? It would be great to be a protector. Is being a protector good? Zhaoing nodded. Of course. If I can come out to play, the pay is high. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. Is being a protector not good? Zhaoing asked in surprise. Chu Li smiled. It's not that being a protector isn't good, but my ambition is not to be a protector. Then what is your ambition? Zhaoing was even more curious. All the guards in the public house worked hard to be a protector and train. In this world where martial arts were flourishing, it was hard to do anything without martial arts. Everything was based on martial arts. Chu Li did the opposite. He was obviously skilled in martial arts, but he did not want to be a protector. He was willing to be a small scribe. Chu Li said, I think being a scribe is safer. Senior brother, you don't look like a coward. Zhaoing tilted her head and looked at him. Chu Li shook his head. I value my life. Zhaoing stared at him curiously. Senior brother, you're brushing me off. There must be a reason. Everyone has their own ambition. I like a stable life. I can't be a protector. Chu Li smiled. Is it that hard to understand? If you were 20 years older, I would believe you. You're so young, but you're saying this. Zhaoing smiled and shook her head. Chu Li waved his hand and smiled. I won't be a protector. That's too bad. I'm also rank 6 now. That's true. Zhaoing nodded. A rank 6 scribe and a rank 6 protector were similar in status. The only difference was the salary. Chu Li smiled and looked at her. What he pursued was different from others. He not only wanted martial arts, but he also wanted power. A man could not be powerless for even a day. He was tortured by power in his past life. As a researcher, his research funds were controlled by his superiors. It was like his testicles were being squeezed. It was a painful and torturous feeling. He had vowed countless times that he would become a government official. In this world, he left the temple for glory and wealth. He wanted to enjoy the wonderful taste of power. Martial arts was the most powerful force in this world, but power was even more powerful. With powerful martial arts, one could be free and unfettered. Having power was the most wonderful thing. Only then would he have lived his life in vain. As a protector, he could only pursue powerful martial arts. It was difficult for him to enter the ranks of the public house. So no matter what, he would not challenge the ranking tower. The two talked as they rode. The next afternoon, they arrived at the raging tiger troop. When they saw the entrance of the cave, their faces changed. The huge rock was broken into pieces and scattered all over the ground. Chapter 33. Zhao Ying's face tightened as she frowned at the gravel. She looked at Chu Li worriedly. "Brother, will they be in danger?" Chu Li shook his head. He had already looked through the omniscient mirror. All 150 women were sitting in the main hall, chanting scriptures with their palms pressed together. He saw an old monk in a gray robe. He had a scar on his forehead. He was tall and strong, with a lion's nose and tiger's eyes. He was sitting in front of the women, chanting. Through the omniscient mirror, he saw that the old monk's meridians were glowing. He was an innate master, and his inner energy was profound. "Is the master inside?" Zhaoing asked. Chu Li nodded. Zhaoing frowned. "He didn't harm them, did he?" "They're fine now. Come, let's go in." Chu Li stepped into the cave and entered the valley, arriving at the raging tiger troop. The old monk suddenly opened his eyes. His gaze was like a sword, cold and threatening. He glanced at the women and glided out of the main hall. He came to the foot of the mountain and looked up at Chu Li. Chu Li stood halfway up the mountain and looked at him. He closed fists saluted. "Who are you? Why are you here?" "I'm a monk." The old monk placed his palms together and chanted the name of Buddha. He stared at Chu Li coldly. "Why are you two here?" Chu Li said, "I'm a scribe from the public house. I happened to pass by here, and there were bandits running amok. I had to do justice and get rid of them, leaving these women alive." He knew the identity of this monk, so he used the name of the public house. "The raging tiger troop was destroyed by you?" The monk's eyes flashed like lightning. Chu Li nodded. "That's right. You're so young, and yet you have such martial arts. I'm impressed." The monk said slowly, "I came here to persuade them to abandon evil and do good. It's a shame that they're already dead. I was too late. What a shame." Chu Li smiled. "It's a pity that they don't have the fortune to enjoy it. Almsgiver, you should give them a chance to abandon evil and do good." "You're wrong. Give them a chance. But did they give the people they killed a chance? They're so evil that even the heavens won't forgive them." Amitabha, the cycle of cause and effect, the 6 paths of reincarnation. Everything has a cause and effect. "Monk, are you saying that those who died deserve to die? Then they are destined to die a violent death. As the saying goes, those who kill will always be killed." Zhao Ying snorted. "Monk, please move aside. We want to see those sisters." The monk put his palms together and smiled. "Ladies, you have devoted yourselves to Buddha and escaped from the sea of bitterness. Congratulations. I want to talk to them." Zhao Ying said. "Please." The monk waved his robe and stepped aside. Chu Li and Zhao Ying glided down and passed by the monk. Chu Li looked relaxed, but he was secretly focused, ready to attack at any time. This old monk didn't come with good intentions. He was from the great Thunderclap Monastery, the head of the world's 4 great sections. They were known as number 1 under the heavens, and no one dared to provoke them. Chu Li was very afraid of the Tempest Temple, even though he had moved out of the public house. The 3 of them fluttered to the main hall. 150 women were sitting on praying mats, chanting in low voices. It was a solemn scene. Zhao Ying subconsciously lightened her footsteps. Chu Li coughed softly, breaking the solemnity of the hall. The girls raised their heads and were overjoyed. Zhao smiled and waved at them. Sisters, I'm here to pick you up. A slightly older girl stood up. Sister Zhao, where are we going? Brother bought a house in Chongming town. Everyone can live there. In the future, he will open a restaurant. Sisters, you can earn your own living. The girls looked hesitant. Zhao Ying smiled. Brother said that we have to earn our own living. We can either stay in the house and be his servants or help out in the restaurant. We can't just be idlers. All the girls nodded. They would rather work to support themselves. Idling around was a very painful thing. Working would allow them to think less nonsense. Sister Zhao, what if someone wants to stay? It's not safe here. Someone might come here any time. Just like this monk, didn't he come looking for us? Fortunately, he is not a bad person. If not, we would be in danger. Almsgiver Zhao, these ladies have converted to Buddha. I will send them to a nunnery to cultivate and forgive their sins. The monk pressed his palms together and smiled. Zhao Ying was stunned. Converted? The monk nodded and smiled. Yes, they have been influenced by the Dharma and have turned to Buddha with sincerity. Not necessarily. Zhao Ying frowned and glanced at the girls. They looked at her helplessly. Zhao Ying pulled the girl who stood up out of the hall and whispered to her. She lowered her voice and looked at the monk in the hall. Sister Zhang, what's going on? The girl's name was Zhang Fu. She had a gentle temperament. She shook her head and whispered, This monk is an eminent monk from the Tempest Temple. He has a profound understanding of Dharma. We think that he is right. Sister Zhang, we still have a long way to go. Zhao Ying said disapprovingly, Let's go to Chongming town and start a new life. Little Sister Zhao, we are both ruined flowers and withered willows. We are destined to have no future. Nonsense, my senior, and I will not ignore everyone. We are actually the public house's guards. The public house. Zhang Fu was surprised. Zhao Ying nodded slowly, so you don't have to worry. Brother, and I can take care of you. Zhang Fu looked at her from head to toe. Zhao Ying smiled. Why? Don't I look like one? I didn't expect you to be from the public house. If we knew, we wouldn't have to worry. Zhang Fu shook her head and sighed. In the eyes of outsiders, the public house was powerful and influential. They could be said to be the pinnacle of existence. If they could build a relationship with the public house, there was nothing to be afraid of. Sister Zhang, go and persuade the others. They should live a good life and become nuns. What's the point? It's better to live a happy life. Yes, I will persuade them. The two chatted for a while and returned to the hall. Zhang Fu whispered to the girls. The girls looked at Chu Li and Zhao Ying with surprise and excitement. The monk's face darkened. He chanted the name of Buddha and shook his head, sighing, The sea of bitterness has no bounds. Repent and be saved. Ladies, you are so stubborn. It's sad. Chu Li smiled. Monk, you need to be sincere to Buddha. You can't force it. Almsgiver Chu, the leader of the raging tiger troop died in your hands, right? Yes. What martial arts did he use? Forgive me for my ignorance. I didn't recognize it. He was a traitor of our temple. Oh, although he was a traitor, he was still a disciple of our temple. He still had his martial arts. Since Almsgiver Chu was able to kill him, I would like to have a taste of your martial arts. Chu Li smiled. Could it be that you want to avenge him? Almsgiver Chu, you are wrong. The monk shook his head. I came here to take care of this traitor. He has already been beheaded. I can't go back empty-handed. What do you mean? Chu Li smiled. Are you saying that you can punish a traitor of your temple but not others? Amit Ba. The monk pressed his palms together. Chu Li sneered. What a tyrannical Tempest temple. Almsgiver Chu, this rule is not unique to our temple. It's the same for all sects. The monk said, Are you trying to take my life? Of course not. The monk shook his head. He is a traitor. He deserves to die. Almsgiver Chu, you only need to defeat me, and all the grudges will be written off. What if I can't? Just one arm is enough. Interesting. Chu Li laughed. What a tempest temple. Fine, please. Please. The monk pressed his palms together. Almsgiver Chu, please do your best, and don't make a mistake. He. Chu Li laughed and unsheathed his sword. Zhaoying frowned and glared at the monk. You call yourself a monk? Hypocrite. Chu Li shook his head. With the omniscient mirror, he could see through the monk's thoughts. This old monk was a vicious person. Although he said that he only needed one arm, he actually wanted to kill him. If he lost, he would definitely die. He looked like a Buddhist monk, but he was so cunning. Buddhism could not erase one's personality. Forgive me. Chu Li shouted and pulled out his sword. Ding! Chu Li's palm and the long sword collided. The long sword was deflected, and a cold inner energy flowed through the long sword into his palm, heading towards his heart. Chu Li realized that the first level of the infinite azure sea could not block it. He quickly layered it up, and only after twice did he manage to block the inner energy from entering his heart. What a vicious palm energy! Once it reached his heart, his life would be in danger. He staggered 2 steps back, his face flushed red. He continued to layer the infinite azure sea and managed to forcefully thrust his sword forward. The monk smiled and slammed his palm down again. Bang! A muffled sound was heard. The monk's eyes widened as he retreated. He desperately tried to dissolve the inner energy that had entered his body. He was deceived by Chu Li and thought that Chu Li was at his weakest. He did not expect Chu Li's inner energy to be so strong. Chu Li followed closely and stabbed his sword into his shoulder. Ding! The sound of metal clashing could be heard. The sword did not manage to pierce through. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.